You and I are about to watch Jake, a fat guy reborn in a world of sacred weapons. He became an archer, a class everyone called trash, but Jake is ruthless and shows zero mercy. He forges arrows like spears to become an elite primordial hunter in a world where nobody is safe. People panicked about the apocalypse, but for some reason, our main character felt totally fine with the chaos. Fighting monsters isn't his worst nightmare. Actually, he feels a deep sense of peace while out on the hunt. Now, watch this carefully. His path was never simple, and it nearly drove him into total madness. Before his downfall, he was a regular worker who lacked social skills and avoided talking to anyone. He often missed social cues, like when his colleague asked if he had a nice, relaxing weekend. He just said it was normal, even after she mentioned a fishing trip ruined by the bad weather. Finally, the elevator reached his floor. Alone again, he felt broken. Making friends the old-fashioned way seemed like an impossible challenge. He lived like this for years. Life is hard when social skills are the key to every good opportunity. Growing up, he loved solo activities, and his absolute favorite was archery. He knew he wasn't meant for this world, sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. With no family or friends, Jake was suddenly startled by the voice of a potential friend. This is Adam, one of the only people who is actually nice to him, a natural leader and his total opposite. Adam has a remarkable talent for starting a conversation. Jake usually declines, but he accepts the invitation this time while everyone waits for the elevator. Inside is Carolina from HR. To our protagonist, she is a total sight for sore eyes at the office. She warned Adam he might get fired if he kept wearing that incredibly tight shirt to work. Carolina noticed him and was shocked he joined. Hearing her say his name made our boy feel very anxious. However, relief came quickly when she finally changed the subject. Suddenly, everyone got nervous as the elevator started shaking. The vibrations began to increase to a dangerous level. Adam desperately begged our protagonist to hit the emergency button, but even after he pressed it, nothing happened. The lights died, leaving them all in the dark. Now here's the part you and I need to watch carefully. Everything changes with a single notification. Somewhere in the universe, an entity watches these people like lambs being led to the slaughter. Jake wakes up in a room, completely alone with no idea where he is. A silver-skinned cosmic being greeted him, giving Jake a massive heart attack. The entity said it was responsible for introducing him to this reality, but they were in a huge hurry. Jake was confused until a status screen appeared right in front of his eyes. It showed stats based on his own soul. His universe finally met the requirements to join the trial. Additional information would be released over time. The room turned into a cosmic mirror. The entity told him to choose his class very carefully. It was time to pick a profession that would boost his natural, innate proficiency. Jake didn't hesitate and chose archer. The time for his introduction was almost up. He was headed to the tutorial forest, a deadly place to grow stronger and hunt monsters. Beasts roam here constantly. Once defeated, they provide those essential tutorial points. If he gets strong enough, Jake can even hunt the beast lords during this 64-day trial. That is all the entity could share. Jake felt the adrenaline start to rush through him. He was hyped. Inside the massive forest, his companions were also transported. Jake gained a basic bow and armor, but he noticed not everyone was lucky like him. Adam tried to lead, but the ground began to shake, causing the whole group to panic. Despite the fear, other humans were there too, determined to start their very first hunt. They heard a noise and called out, "But you and I will see what's really hiding." All right. Stick with me. You and I are diving into a world where trust gets you killed. This kid looks totally harmless, so the group welcomes him in. He claims his entire team was wiped out in a brutal attack right at the start. Being alone is a death sentence here, so they suggest he joins their group. They promise to help find his friends, making him look relieved. But watch closely. You and I can see his dagger is already dripping with fresh blood. Meanwhile, our main protagonist and his team are trying to plan their next move. Someone mentioned seeing a bizarre alien earlier. Turns out, everyone in the group had the same creepy encounter. With things getting urgent, Adam takes charge. His natural leadership is seriously starting to impress Jake as the music builds. Even more. Now, they desperately need to find a safe shelter with enough water and food. Jake knows other survivors are out there, but mastering their new skills comes first. Thankfully, the team is looking pretty balanced so far. Adam pins down an elk, and our hero finishes it with a clean arrow shot. Afterward, Carolina works her magic to heal the wounded. By nightfall, they finally relax around a campfire. Carolina can't help but praise our protagonist's skills. She had no idea he was such a pro with a bow, leaving him feeling totally awkward. Despite the chaos, Adam stays positive, throwing even more compliments toward our main character for his combat performance. He gets incredibly flustered, insisting he didn't really do anything that special or heroic. But this world is dangerous, and the old rules are dead. They stay alert, setting up a watch rotation while the others sleep. One of Jake's colleagues mentions She was supposed to meet her husband for lunch, just moments before the world flipped. Feeling lonely, she asks if Jake has a girlfriend. Naturally, the answer is a big fat no. The guy is socially hopeless. Back in college, he only had 2 friends, an extrovert and a stunning girl named Melina. Jake was head over heels in love with her. They were inseparable, and those were the best years of his life until he realized a brutal truth was hidden right in front of him. Back in the present, the likely widow begins to vent, crying her eyes out because she has no idea what happened to her husband. Jake feels like he should comfort her, but the words just won't come. He has no idea what to say. Joanna walks away to clear her head. Seeing her vulnerability sparks something inside Jake. Maybe he can finally reinvent himself in this world. Wait, I know what you're thinking. A scream in the forest? Let's see. Jake rushes into the trees. Joanna has stumbled right into a group of nasty thugs. They demand to know where the rest of her team is hiding. Since she won't talk, they decide to get violent. Using a massive hammer, the thug crushes her foot into total paste. It is absolutely brutal. Suddenly, arrows whistle through the air, hitting one thug in the throat. The other barely blocks the next shot with his axe. They scramble, desperate to find the shooter. The man with the axe charges toward the source of the arrows, but finds no one. Jake was already behind him. With one quick arrow, he moves in for the kill. He almost takes the guy out, but the cut is too shallow. This fight is going to drag on. The axeman keeps the pressure on, cornering Jake. Joanna passes out from the pain, and the second attacker has completely vanished. Jake realizes he's walked into a trap. He's just seconds away from finding out exactly what happens after you die. In this desperate situation, there's nothing left to do. But then, something absolutely insane happens to his body. Jake feels reality shift. Everything around him starts moving in slow motion. His bloodline awakens the legendary lineage of the Primal Hunter. Instincts take over. Jake dodges the axe and even catches an arrow mid-air, gravely injuring his attacker. Even now, our boy has no idea what's happening. In the next heartbeat, he grabs a fallen sword and ends the life of the other pathetic extra. He deflects a volley of arrows with the blade. It is finally time for the hidden sniper to show his face. A young guy jumps from the bushes, totally desperate. He lunges at our protagonist, grabbing his clothes and trying to end his life immediately. But Jake is faster, jamming the tip of an arrow right into the guy's eye. It is over. Enraged, Jake keeps striking his attacker over and over until his team finally reaches the clearing to see the total carnage. They find 2 corpses on the ground. They can't process the carnage. To make it worse, Jake has a terrifying look on his face. So what do you and I take from this? The past is finally catching up. Flashback to student Jake. Alright, you and I are diving into a flashback that shows why Jake is such a beast. Those jerks wouldn't leave the girl alone, so Jake snapped. He charged in and instantly flattened one of the thugs. That's when he saw it. To the victim, these guys weren't just bullies, they were violent monsters she absolutely loathed. Jake ended up suspended, but the lesson stuck. He realized that in the end, all violence is the same. Back in the present, Caroline is panicking. There's so much blood on the floor, she thinks Jake is a goner. But Jake just keeps his cool. That blood isn't his, and killing those thugs actually scored him some tutorial points. Then he sees a new skill called Primal Hunter Bloodline. It totally sharpens his senses and perception of everything. Adam is demanding answers about the attackers, but Jake doesn't care. They were just hunters looking for easy points. Caroline managed to patch up Joanna's leg, but the vibe is heavy. They desperately need to find a safe zone. A voice cuts through the air. Caroline isn't happy, and she wants to know why Joanna was left all alone. Jake explains she needed space to breathe, but Caroline isn't buying it. Seriously, for everyone's sake, I hope she just goes to hell. Stick with me here, you'll soon realize Caroline is a total snake. Now she's actually blaming Jake for everything. Adam finally has to step in before her screaming match gets even more out of control. He asks Jake more calmly why he let her stay alone. Why didn't he just wake someone else up to watch her? Jake shoots back that everything happened too fast. They're human and make mistakes. But Caroline is still acting like a total brat. She keeps whining that Joanna could have died. Jake has had enough and asks if she even understands the situation. Joanna is breathing because he acted. There was no time for help. In this cruel world, those people were playing for keeps and wanted them all dead. He asks if they have the guts to do the same. Life isn't some sweet picnic anymore, folks. It's a dry, exhausted world that'll take everything you've got. After that heavy speech, the team asks for their next move. Jake tells them to do whatever they want, as long as they level up and escape this living hell. He's tired of being the scapegoat for their laziness. The next morning, our main character goes to catch up with Casper. Casper says the group finally talked it out. From now on, everyone has to take responsibility for their own lives. Turns out, these two were actually old friends who used to help each other out at work. Back then, their biggest struggle was just talking to girls. Now, the stakes are a lot more deadly. Joanna's leg is gone, replaced by a rough wooden prosthetic. They're hoping Caroline can master a higher healing spell to fix it. Despite the tragedy, the group seems more fired up than ever to get back to hunting. Joanna and Bertram are solid fighters, but Caroline is actually pretty gifted, even if her personality is the absolute worst. Ever since Joanna got hurt, something seems to have shifted deep inside that difficult woman's heart. Their starting healing potions are all gone now. Caroline's magic is the only thing keeping them alive out here. She hasn't said a word to Jake since the fight. He's feeling the tension, so he just decides to play it cool. After a few hours pass, he and Casper decide to shift gears and focus on some training. Now pay attention, Jake is trying to dodge mud while blindfolded, but he just ends up covered in filth. It seems his perception only responds to real danger. Adam gathers everyone together. The sun is going down, and they need to find a place to hunker down. They stumble onto a cave. It'll keep the rain off them, but it's also a perfect spot for an ambush. Jake is overthinking every move now. He still feels the weight of what happened to Joanna's leg on his shoulders. Adam sees the struggle and tells him to take it easy. Jake just doesn't want to fail his team again. Adam apologizes to the boy, telling him he shouldn't be so hard on himself. But they have to clear the cave first. Jake realizes that without Adam's leadership, this whole group would probably collapse. Then again, if it wasn't for Adam, Jake wouldn't even be stuck in this forest right now. Way back when, Adam was the one who personally invited him to join this survival team. One lunch invite led to another, and well, the rest is history. Now they're all deep in this damp cave in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake violently. Massive boulders start raining down from the ceiling without warning. Jake screams for everyone to run. Even Joanna is sprinting like a pro athlete as the rocks come crashing down in massive piles. But Jake spots Caroline. She's lagging behind and can't keep up with the girl on one leg. And trust me, you and I are about to see Jake hit a level of speed that's beyond human. Alright, you and I are diving back in as Jake pushes his limits to save Caroline from a mountain of falling debris. It would have been a death sentence. Now the team is split in two, but at least everyone is still breathing. Trapped behind the rubble, Adam tries reaching his friends. They can hear each other, but the noise they're making is too loud. Jake tells Caroline to keep it down since this entire place feels like it could collapse at any second. Plus, they have no clue what's lurking in the dark. Caroline points out the obvious: these boulders aren't moving an inch. On the other side, some bad ideas are starting to form. They want to blast through, but Adam shuts that down immediately. Joanna is losing it. She's terrified of being left alone in this nightmare. Since this cave system is massive, Adam suggests they find another way around. It might be their only shot at survival. Jake agrees, deciding they should push deeper and hope to reconnect later. But the thought of hidden monsters is definitely weighing very heavily on him. And on top of everything else, he has to keep Caroline safe. Suddenly full of main character energy, Caroline takes the lead, refusing to let her story end in a damp cave. Jake actually respects that kind of optimism. An hour passes with no sign of the others, but the group still has hope. With Caroline healing and Jake being the heavy hitter, they have a decent chance of making it through this. But let's not forget what everyone saw back in the heart of the forest. Now watch this. Our protagonist was standing in a pool of blood, smiling like a psychopath. Adam thinks he was just in total shock. The swordsman is not so sure. He warns that this crisis is changing people, and Jake might be becoming something dangerous. Adam hates that idea, and chooses to put his full trust in his friend with the glasses. Back in the cave, Caroline notices Jake's arm is messed up. He had not even felt it, probably thanks to the adrenaline from earlier. As she prepares her healing magic, Jake looks confused, asking if she is still mad at him. Caroline just brushes it off. Personal feelings aside, she needs him alive if she wants to survive. Jake is basically a social disaster, so he has absolutely no clue how to respond to that. Caroline warns him to be careful. He is strong, but not immortal, and her mana pool is far from bottomless. Since they are finally talking, Jake finds the courage to ask her why she even chose the healer class. She flips the question back at him. Why did he decide to become an archer? For Jake, it was just the most practical way to stay alive, and honestly, Caroline had the exact same mindset. You and I both know the meta here. Caroline has played enough games to know that healers are always in high demand. Jake is shocked. She is a gamer. It turns out it all started back when her little brother was stuck in the hospital. She could not visit him for weeks at a time, so they bonded through online games instead. He never pegged her for having a brother. Caroline admits she was always forced into the healer role just because she was a girl. At first, she hated it. She wanted to be a frontline warrior and deal massive damage like everyone else. But she quickly realized that warriors are a dime a dozen and struggle to find groups. As a healer, she is always the most wanted player. She figured if she could stay useful, she would never be left behind. Her key to survival. Jake actually agrees that her logic is pretty solid. Caroline snaps back that she is not as dumb as she looks. This makes him stop and reevaluate her. He had only ever seen her as a coworker, never as a real person. With his wound finally patched up, the pair continues deeper until they hit a fork in the road. Caroline has no idea which way to go, but Jake is already coldly calculating their next move. Suddenly, he senses something bizarre and asks if she can feel it too. Her perception skill has not kicked in yet, but he can definitely feel something lurking down one of the paths. Dozens of eyes are staring out from the darkness. Jake is certain that something absolutely terrifying is waiting for them. His instincts are screaming for him to be careful, but a part of his heart is actually craving the danger. He tells Caroline they are going in. The logic is simple. Those eyes in the dark represent one thing: a massive pile of experience points. Caroline thinks it is suicide and wants to find the team first, but Jake argues this might be the only way to reach them. Caroline still is not buying it. Points are the only thing that will keep you and I alive. Remember that. Caroline isn't buying that logic. Honestly, you and I are watching an incredibly risky move play out here. Under these conditions, our guy just wants to fight. It's fun for him, but Caroline is prioritizing staying alive. Then you've got Jake, who's obsessed with getting stronger. Honestly, can't really blame the guy for wanting more power. They've got superhuman abilities now. Why settle for just surviving when they can actually seize this massive opportunity? Caroline misses her old life. She hates the thought of turning into a killer just to make it through. She tells our main character to think about the group instead of his own selfish needs. That's when it finally clicks. He agrees to play it safe, and Caroline is visibly relieved. She even thanks him for listening. Meanwhile, deeper in the cave, the rest of the team is panicking. Casper thinks they're okay, but the darkness is oppressive. Even with his high perception skills, he's struggling to see 2 feet in front of him. The team is stuck. Do they rest or keep moving? One of them argues it's way smarter to stop for the night. Plus, they've got to think about Joanna. She's worried she's just a burden to the rest of them. She insists she's fine, but Adam is stressed. He's trying to keep everyone safe while the path ahead stays pitch black. Suddenly, a faint noise echoes. They kill the torches and dive for cover, preparing for the absolute worst. Casper is sweating. He's completely unable to identify a single thing out there. Tension is hitting the ceiling until Casper spots something moving fast. To their massive relief, it's a familiar face. The group is finally back together. Everyone's thrilled, but they immediately start asking if our main character ran into trouble. Our guy starts to stammer, but Caroline jumps in. She tells them everything was totally fine, but they've walked a long way. Now they just need a safe spot to sleep that won't collapse on their heads. Joanna gets a nasty surprise. A huge spider pops up, and she has to smash it, clearly hating these creepy crawlies. Casper goes full nerd, explaining how spiders are actually vital to the ecosystem. He decides to spare another spider that crawls by. Big mistake. He's so busy being kind, he misses the actual threat. A whole swarm appears. Casper tries to stay calm, telling everyone most spiders aren't actually a danger to humans. What a fool. Adam tries to help, but a spider sinks its fangs right into his neck. Now they're in real trouble. These things are tiny, but there are thousands of them, and the group is totally surrounded. Casper goes pale. He realizes he can't even move his legs anymore. Watch this, because huge red eyes just opened in the dark. A menacing boss spider is ready to finish them. They need to move fast. Casper is already regretting every single word of that "spiders are friends" speech. Before it strikes, an arrow thuds into the beast. This gives Adam the chance to grab the idiot who spared them. With Casper on his back, Adam screams for everyone to run for their lives immediately. Our protagonist stays back to provide cover so the others can escape, but his second arrow? Blocked. This monster is a level 3. Even with that kind of pressure, our guy doesn't even flinch. The rest of the group bolts. They know they're outmatched. Adam yells for Jake to join them, but he's staying put. You and I both know Jake isn't running. He sees an opportunity and pulls out his sword. He starts brutally hacking at the enemy, sliding right under its belly to deal massive damage. Caroline says to leave him to his madness, but Adam refuses. Then boom, Jake takes a direct hit. The impact is insane. He slammed into the rocks with absolutely devastating force. The whole cave is starting to shake, but even injured, our protagonist isn't finished with this fight. He feels it again. His bloodline is surging. He reaches for another arrow, eyes locked on the target. The spider lunges to end it, but it doesn't realize the real monster in this cave is our boy. Time's up. The cave is collapsing. Jake, fueled by pure rage, goes all out against his enemy. Back home, life was a nightmare. Here, it's not a game anymore. It's his brand new purpose. He's going to get stronger. Adam is losing it. This entire place is about to come down. Jake can't even hear him. His senses are peaked, allowing him to predict every single incoming attack. Everything slows down. He's calculating his next move as a lethal strike comes screaming from behind. Trust me, you and I won't believe what happens next. He makes a clean cut, but not at the spider. All right, you and I are about to see Adam, the absolute fool, ruin one of the best moments in the story. Thinking he is the actual main character, this guy tells our boy not to die here. Now they are both sprinting because the cave is literally falling apart. The poor spider gets left in the dust since it did not even realize the danger was coming. The rest of the team made it out, and Joanna is losing her mind, fearing the worst. Luckily, Adam and our boy escape just in time. Caroline starts panicking the second she sees their leader limping out with an injury. Jake tries to apologize, saying it was an accident, but that just gives Caroline an excuse to talk trash about why he should not have fought the spider. That gives the blue-haired brat enough confidence to talk smack too, claiming that anyone who hurts a teammate needs to be punished. Adam tries to tell them it is just a scratch, nothing to worry about, but these extras are already seeing red. Now pay attention, because Jake finally realizes he is a total outcast to these people, and that blue-haired extra is already terrified. He is literally shaking in his boots. Since our main character's self-esteem is not exactly high, he starts believing he is just a useless burden or a danger to the group. He even starts blaming himself for what happened to Joanna. Flashbacks hit him hard, remembering when he tried to save Caroline and ended up putting everyone in that situation. While they are still fighting, Jake hears a rustle in the bushes. He levels his bow, ready to drop whoever is creeping up on them. A man in heavy armor steps out. His name is Richard, and he is here to check out all the noise from the collapse. He claims he is not looking for trouble, and Adam immediately lets his guard down. It is a relief to find other friendly humans. Richard has his own men with him, and he keeps insisting he wants to keep things peaceful. Among them is a blonde kid with a seriously shady look. Still, a larger group usually means better survival odds. He says he understands if they are nervous, but suggests they team up. Caroline looks a bit suspicious, though. Richard quickly clocks that she is a healer. Make no mistake, she is the only one this man actually wants. Our main character already knows that a healer's skill set is worth their weight in gold. Okay, stay with me here. Richard reveals his healer died, which is a massive problem. He is willing to accept anyone into his group, but he is even willing to take the healer alone. Adam realizes the vibe is shifting from friendly to hostile real fast. But Richard repeats that he would prefer to keep things non-violent, claiming it is for everyone's benefit. One thing is for sure though, he is not leaving without that healer. Jake gets tense, knowing his team is completely drained. He wonders if he could end this with a sneak attack, but those other extras are a serious threat. Richard keeps playing the diplomat, repeating how badly they need a healer on their side. The main character realizes a fight is out of the question. Adam, oblivious to the tension, tries to calm our boy down. He tells the others that joining forces might be their best bet. Survival has to be the #1 priority right now. Caroline is ready to do whatever it takes to avoid a brawl. Jake is disappointed watching his comrades give in to these strangers. The deal is done. Even though he is confused, our boy realizes this situation could actually work in his favor. He decides to test Richard, asking what his current level is. The man brags he is level 9, with his men already past 7. Flashing a wicked smile, our main character feels like he is holding all the cards. With a sarcastic jab, he claims he was looking for someone actually strong, before telling them his level is absolutely none of their business. His own group is stunned by his attitude. They definitely did not expect Jake to be this disrespectful. Richard is fuming because he thought they had an agreement. Jake says his friends will join, but he has better things to do in the forest. He warns Richard to take good care of them, or he will be back for blood. Full of swagger, Jake asks Richard if he really thinks he is the apex predator in this woods. Then he presses his blade against the man's throat, proving the archers would not even have time to react. He could have taken his head right then and there. Walking away, Jake tells them he will be watching. Given the group's needs, Caroline will be safe for sure. If it keeps her happy, Adam will be safe too. This move ends up helping everyone in the long run. Jake is just hoping his little performance actually left a mark. As he heads off, Adam and Casper catch up, totally lost on why their main character is striking out on his own. Jake reveals he has his own goals for this tutorial, and this split is for the best. His friends will be safer with the larger group. He tells them not to sweat it, because he will definitely be coming back to check on them. Before parting ways, Adam hands over some supplies, and trust me, you and I both know he is going to need every single one of those potions. Alright, you and I are diving into a story where the hero is more dangerous than the villains. Jake thanks Adam and heads out. Richard gives the signal to his hitman. That smug grin says it all. One of these guys isn't walking away from this encounter alive. The thugs move in on our protagonist. Their goal? Put a hole right through his head. These thugs think he is an easy target, but they are dead wrong. Arrows fly from the darkness, leaving them absolutely paralyzed with fear. The arrows just keep coming. These bandits are completely helpless against the unseen archer. 2 are down already. The survivors scramble for cover, diving into the nearby bushes to catch their breath. The leader scans the trees. He thinks Jake is coming closer and orders his partner to strike. The guy creeps forward, searching for a target, completely oblivious that a monster is already breathing down his neck. Our boy's blade tastes blood again, but wait, this whole thing was a setup. That snake used his own friend as bait just to land a shot. Jake takes an arrow to the gut, but strangely enough, he is actually enjoying the pain. More projectiles whiz by, but Jake is too fast. He vanishes into the brush to reset the hunt. Enveloped by the pitch-black forest, the final thug watches the trees with wide eyes. The tension is suffocating. A loud snap echoes through the trees, making the guy jump out of his skin. Turns out, it was just a dead branch falling on his head. He still has no idea where the protagonist is hiding. And pay attention here, this is exactly how you deal with an assassin. He sinks his blade into the guy's back, leaving him to rot on the forest floor. Jake senses another presence approaching and tells her not to move a single muscle. Jake has completely surrendered to his bloodlust. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, his old companions are meeting with Richard. Adam explains that back in their world, he was the manager in charge of keeping this whole group together. He still feels responsible for them. Richard is impressed by that loyalty and decides he'd rather have Adam as a friend than an enemy. He mentions he's built a safe camp for survivors and is finally ready to show them his secret base. The setup is actually pretty high-end, especially for people stuck in a fantasy world. Caroline is genuinely stunned. This camp is way better than she expected. Casper sees plenty of women around and decides this is his new home. This beats sleeping in a damp cave any day. Now that everyone's arrived, it's time to assign rooms. The hospitality here has been surprisingly great so far. Suddenly, the sound of clanking metal rings out. A woman stumbles toward them, looking absolutely terrified. Her armor rattles as she approaches. Richard calls for guards, but he quickly realizes it isn't necessary. She's one of their own, and she's got some heavy news for the boss. Richard notices she's alone. Between gasps for air, she chokes out that her entire squad was slaughtered. Richard assumes someone betrayed them, but she insists they were simply hunted down. The news leaves him completely shocked. One single archer took them all out in the woods. This whole story sounds absolutely impossible. Let's stop for a second. Imagine the look on Richard's face when he hears the message Jake sent for his friends. He warned them to stay safe. To make matters worse, it seems that Psychopath actually enjoyed every second of the massacre. With pure horror in her eyes, she calls Jake a literal monster. Moving through the trees, Jake decides he needs his own base. First, he stops to check his current stats. Dropping those thugs gave him enough points to hit level 7. It's way faster progress than he expected. He's also got fresh attribute points to spend. He decides to double down on his bloodline trait by dumping everything into his perception stat. His total health is becoming a major problem. He is down to just 103 points left after taking that arrow to the stomach. With no healer around, our boy is going to have to be extremely careful. Just as he's checking his stats, a pack of wolves surrounds him. For Jake, this is a party. Back at camp, a blonde kid is trying to flirt with the newcomers. He approaches Caroline with a shy act. He claims he's not like the other crazies. His name is William, and he seems pretty harmless. Caroline notices he's the youngest guy there, which William admits has been a bit of a problem. At only 19, he feels overlooked, but he swears he's just another normal guy trying to survive. Caroline falls for the act, thinking he's just another victim. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see what happens next. Let's dive into a story where even a quick nap could be your last. At least that's how it looks. Our main character just woke up, startled out of his mind. He has no idea how long he was out, but it's already morning and every muscle is screaming. Now he's flying solo on this journey. Time to work. Bagging a rabbit with an arrow? Easy work. To stay alive, our boy has to hunt these creatures while fending off anything that wants a piece of him. After just one day of grinding, he hits level 10. Suddenly, a strange glint high in a tree catches his eye. Jake thinks it's a trap, but he doesn't sense a threat. He wants answers, so it's time to go exploring. Our guy scales the tree and finds a small box that looks like it's holding some kind of jewel. This is a system treasure. Inside sits a powerful item. Jake quickly realizes this is just how this world works. He finds leather bracers made for an archer. Now, this is a seriously interesting piece of gear, but there's more inside. An upgrade token. He could use it on his bow, but that tool is already useful. Jake thinks about fixing his raggedy cloak instead. Honestly, that's probably the smartest move right now. Slowly, the holes start to vanish. It's now the archer's mantle self-repairing and tough enough to stop a blade. It's not exactly legendary, but in a real fight, it will definitely get the job done. Jake knows more boxes are key. Pay attention, because this is where the real power-ups begin. Bad news is that rock slide. Getting back to that spider might be a total bust. But this forest is huge, plenty of other chances to score big. After hours of trekking, Jake stumbles on another cave. Standing there, his gut tells him everything is fine. Actually, his instincts say there's the gray. Lighting a torch, our hero heads deep into the dark. He finds glowing blue mushrooms and a mysterious, rotting wooden door that looks incredibly ancient and worn down. Suddenly, the system announces a brand new challenge has just been discovered. You need level 10, no profession, and to be in the top 5%. Luckily, Jake checks every box. Jake never backs down. You and I know he's diving in. Inside the mushroom-filled cave, Jake tries to get his bearings. It's definitely a zone made just for this trial. He notices a new necklace around his throat. It's an amulet for the dungeon, meant for storing all his loot. While he is wondering how to use it, the thing starts glowing. Something is about to come out. Right then, a tiny blue creature with wings pops into existence. Jake is obviously freaked out. He has zero clue what this little thing is supposed to be. His first instinct is defense. He reaches for a sword, only to remember he's completely unarmed right now. The blue creature starts getting aggressive, but Jake chills out once he realizes it's tiny and basically harmless. Even so, it keeps on attacking, telling him exactly how pathetic he really is. Jake is legitimately stunned. He never expected this little fly-sized being to actually speak. Startled, Jake steps back and trips a hidden floor plate. Yep, he just triggered a trap. A stone projectile screams toward his face. Without even thinking, our boy pulls off a clean dodge. The impact is massive, shattering the cave floor. The little blue guy just watches, looking totally entertained. Jake notices the impact zone is starting to melt. That's a bad sign. This attack is lethal. Jake asks if every trap in this place is trying to murder him. The creature just shrugs. It has no clue, since it was stuck inside that necklace the whole time. Jake wants to hear the little guy's story, but there's just no time for a chat right now. More traps are clicking into place. Jake has to move. The only goal? Get to the end of this hallway. Using every bit of his agility, Jake weaves through the fire while closing in on the exit. Out of breath, he makes it. The creature even praises him. Jake's confused why it's still following him. It calmly explains it has nowhere else to go and way too much free time on its hands. Further in, Jake sees floating platforms. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see how he clears this next part. He can store those mushrooms in his necklace. But look at those strange openings in the walls. Alright, you and I are diving back in as Jake faces even more traps while the winged creature suggests a risky move. Instead of playing it safe like a normal person, Jake decides to set off the trap on purpose to get it over with. Stone spikes lunge at him from every angle, but our boy stays light on his feet, dodging every single one. Thanks to his bloodline trait, this level of danger is basically child's play. Even the winged creature is starting to feel impressed. With 4 mushrooms in his pocket, it looks like he is actually going to pull off a perfect run. Music. But the creature got distracted and ended up right in a trap's line of fire. She starts panicking, since she is nowhere near as agile as Jake is. Jake realizes the danger immediately. Now, watch closely, he has to reach the creature anyway since it's parked right next to the final mushroom. Because of that quick thinking, our boy manages to save the reckless little thing. They roll across the ground together, barely escaping certain death. Jake just lies there for a few seconds, completely drained, trying to get his breath back. The creature officially thanks our boy for saving its life, but Jake snaps at it, making it clear he didn't come here to play hero for some random citizen. Trying to apologize, the creature explains it's been trapped for 1,000 years and isn't very agile. That's when Jake finally asks what this thing actually is. The creature is an imp named Seal. Once they exchange names, Jake asks who the hell imprisoned him inside that necklace in the first place. Seal says the story is way too long and he'd rather not talk about it right now. Since he didn't see what happened during the chaos, he apologizes, assuming Jake lost that last mushroom during the save. With a cocky smirk, Jake says he would never miss a chance like that. Seal is stunned, calling him an idiot for taking risks but admitting he's talented. In the next stage, our main character finds several stone platforms hovering over a deadly sea of acid. He has 15 minutes to reach the other side. At first glance, it looks like a simple game of jumping from platform to platform. It doesn't look too tough. However, in this zone, all his stats are dropped to 10 points, and his skills are completely locked. Now the fear starts setting in. He can actually feel his strength and reflexes draining away, leaving his body feeling heavy and sluggish. For the first time, Jake realizes he might actually be in way over his head. It feels like gravity has intensified. A quick look at his status screen confirms the nightmare all his attributes are stuck at 10 points. Focusing every ounce of will, Jake tries to connect with his hidden bloodline power. He discovers it's a core part of his being now, and his perception suddenly spikes once again. Seal asks if he's okay, not realizing what just happened. He warns him that the countdown is already ticking. Jake knows falling into that acid sea means an instant and painful death. There seem to be 3 specific types of platforms, each marked with a different symbol. The first shows a serpent eating a mushroom. The second engraving is a winged serpent being worshipped like some kind of god. The final carving is of a dragon. Jake thinks this represents a cycle of growth. He might be right, but right now, he's totally clueless. Every platform also has a unique glow that could be a vital clue. After thinking it over, Jake grabs a mushroom. You and I are about to see if his crazy idea actually works. He tosses the mushroom onto a platform to test it. As soon as it lands, the stone starts absorbing it like a sponge. Seal realizes it's a puzzle. The platform with the feeding serpent symbol was the one that ate the mushroom. Our boy is definitely on the right track. His gut is screaming that the light on these platforms is lethal. He needs to deactivate the trap before making a move. With time running out, it's time for one big gamble. Jake throws another mushroom and prepares to leap. Flying through the air, he can only pray that he doesn't melt into a puddle on the other side. Jake sticks the landing and immediately starts celebrating the fact that he is still breathing. Seal cheers too, but he's confused. Why is he rooting for a human's life all of a sudden? Using this strategy, our boy crosses the gap in record time. He finds another closed door waiting for him at the end. Jake is completely winded, but his timer resets. He's finished the first stage, but he has to do this whole trip 2 more times. The door swings open. Jake sees more platforms ahead, but this time, he's presented with a mysterious, sharp dagger. It's carved from solid bone. Our boy is starting to find this whole setup incredibly strange. Scanning the platforms, he notices the serpent symbols are gone. Jumping now would be suicide. Maybe the dagger is the key to shutting down these traps. The only question is what that winged serpent is actually capable of. Realizing this is some dark ritual, Jake cuts his own hand. As he drips blood onto the symbol, the glow fades. Stick with me to see what happens next. Alright, you and I are about to see if our main character can survive this death trap. Seal has already scouted the path ahead. It is only 3 jumps to safety, but our guy is not feeling good about this at all. Time is running out, so he takes the leap. But the moment he lands, he slips on the fresh blood. He starts to tumble, which is a death sentence here. Looking at his hand, Jake realizes that cursed dagger did something terrible. Even with his strength fading fast, Jake refuses to give up now. He clears the next gap, but as he reaches the final platform, his body erupts in pain. He is in absolute agony. Seal realizes right then that our hero might not actually make it to the end. His final jump is weak and desperate. He barely manages to snag the very edge of the stone platform. Only his fingertips stand between him and a sea of acid. Seal screams for him to hold on, promising the exit is right there. Jake knows he is close, especially since the heat is already melting the tips of his leather boots. That sheer terror is the fuel he needs. He escapes the pit, but the acid has already done severe damage to his leg. Now, watch closely. Because this wound should be fatal. Our hero was practically missing a whole leg, but he had to force himself forward. He did his best to drag his mangled body while Seal tried to help. Jake is burning through his final reserves of energy, and his vision is finally starting to fade to black. It feels like a lethal poison is surging through his veins, dragging him down into total darkness. Dark veins spread across his skin. Every inch of movement is now pure torture. Finally, the system alerts our boy that the stage is cleared and his body is fully restored. Seal tries to wake him, but the healing process is still going. Fully healed, Jake is shocked to find himself still among the living. Even Seal is cheering, since he was positive our boy was a goner. But there is no time to celebrate. They have to beat one last stage with a ticking countdown. After that nightmare, Jake needs a moment to catch his breath. Let's pause here. You and I both know he just looked death right in the face. He loves the thrill of adventure, but dying in a pool of acid was never the plan. That is something he can never accept. Seal totally agrees. The little guy was trapped alone for so long, he feared he would never see a human again. With newfound resolve, our hero swears he won't lose to this final challenge. He is leaving this place alive. Period. He steps through the final door and sees the platforms are now perfectly aligned. Seal thinks the old mushroom trick might work again, but Jake isn't so sure about that. This feels like a completely different puzzle. So far, he hasn't spotted any other obvious clues to help him. The final symbol is a dragon that looks like it is roaring in fury. But Jake wonders if he is misinterpreting it. He thinks back to when he first started this tutorial. Maybe that beast isn't showing anger at all. It could actually be a look of pure terror. Believing in his gut, Jake finally knows what he has to do. He approaches the edge. Seal is panicking because the platforms are still glowing with a dangerous light. Suddenly, Jake just starts running. He leaps over the acid and slams down right onto that dragon symbol. Seal shuts his eyes, waiting for something terrible to happen to his friend. The stone shatters under him, but Jake is already moving. The secret to this whole puzzle was having true courage. He thinks back to his old life where he always felt out of place. Now, he has learned to weaponize his willpower when his only option is to fight. That is how he discovered his own bravery. He keeps pushing forward, even as every platform he crosses is destroyed behind him. That didn't stop our guy from reaching the other side and completing the challenge. The dungeon penalty vanishes instantly. Jake can feel his true power returning to his body. Seal, who is officially his biggest fan now, admits that Jake is one tough human. With the trial over, it's time to claim the hidden reward. That definitely gets our boy interested. He enters a new chamber covered in snake carvings. Jake stops to examine a massive, ancient mural on the wall. It tells the story of a simple snake that ate mystical mushrooms until it finally grew wings and soared through the heavens. Eventually, people began to worship the creature as god. With its godlike strength, it slaughtered every monster in its path until it evolved into a powerful dragon. Trust me, you and I are just scratching the surface of this legend. This dragon will reign through the heavens as time goes on. Alright, let's dive back in as the system announces our protagonist witnessed a true dragon's willpower, gaining 10 points. Seal still had no clue what that meant. Honestly, Jake didn't either, but he was certain about one thing. He wanted a rematch with that dragon one day. Even after reaching the exit, Jake still had to navigate more long corridors. Our boy stops dead in his tracks, causing Cecil to bump his head right on Jake's arm. The creature complains it's too dark to see anything. Jake moves through the shadows easily because he poured a ton of points into his perception stat. But there's a catch. His bloodline trait was evolving. His ability to sense things sharpened even more whenever danger was lurking nearby. Now, that sixth sense was active constantly within a small radius around him. Our lead debated telling Cecil about this since the ancient creature might actually understand how this ability works. Jake suggests the creature should just hide in the necklace until they find some light. Seal shuts that idea down immediately. This makes Jake wonder if it's really that miserable inside. Seal claims the space isn't bad and he can even see the outside world. But once he's inside, he's basically a prisoner unless someone chooses to let him out. Cecil refuses to be stuck for another 1,000 years. Realizing the creature had been trapped that whole time, Jake promises he'll never do that. Feeling pretty skeptical, Cecil just mutters that everyone always says the exact same thing. Now, pay attention here. The dark hallway is suddenly flooded with natural rays of light that aren't coming from mushrooms. Reaching the end of the hall, Jake finds himself in a massive library with no clue where he ended up. Looking closer, he sees the books are ancient, but when he tries to grab one, something bizarre happens. He can't actually touch the materials. Meanwhile, Cecil finds a desk covered in several old notes. However, our protagonist still can't pick them up. It's like an invisible barrier is blocking everything in the room. There's a door in the back of the library that looks like it leads straight outside. Since they can't touch anything, it's time to keep moving. In the next area, Jake finds a series of doors, including a bedroom. Another door leads to a bathroom. Continuing their tour, they stumble upon a beautiful indoor garden. One of the rooms looks like a high-end laboratory. Seal figures they must be inside someone's private mansion. There's only one door left. Upon opening it, they're greeted by those same glowing mushrooms from before. It looks like another trial. In the center of the small room sits an altar marked with a strange papaya symbol. It's clearly designed for someone to interact with it. After the basement incident, Cecil is hesitant, but our main character tells him to be a little more adventurous. You and I knew this was coming. Jake touches the altar instantly, only to regret it right away. A sharp spike shoots out from the stone, piercing Jake's hand with enough force to cause serious damage. Cecil starts panicking again. Jake never expected a trap like this. His refined senses didn't give him a single warning. To make it worse, he's been poisoned. Another altar appears, holding a book engraved with a snake devouring a mushroom. It's obvious to both of them that they've just triggered a brand new challenge. Jake has to become a malefic viper alchemist if he wants to neutralize the toxin in his veins, which will sit dormant for 30 days before killing him. Looking at his hand, the poison doesn't seem to be spreading yet. Our boy could also just walk away. He'd be cured and teleported straight to the Great Forest. Knowing he has an escape route makes him feel more confident. Seal asks what his human partner plans to do. For our protagonist, the choice is easy. He didn't come all this way just to back down from a challenge. Back in the Great Forest, some animals are being tracked by Adam and William. It looks like a high-stakes hunt. The two launch their assault, but the prey is fast, so Bertram, the blue-haired extra, has to corner them. This forces the herd to run straight into the kill zone they've prepared. Now it's Casper's turn. He manages to snag a few animals, though one lucky creature actually manages to escape the trap. Still, the results of the hunt are solid. William steps up, ready to finish the job. He lets his daggers fly. They sink deep into the creature's flesh with lethal precision. William celebrates a bit too wildly, and somehow Casper ends up getting nicked in the process. William apologizes for his messy aim, but Casper shrugs it off. At least they'll have food for the next 7 days. Adam praises the team's hard work, and as they head back to camp, you and I are left wondering what's coming next. Alright, you and I are jumping back in as Casper apologizes because his trap failed to catch everyone. Still, Adam says the haul is great. As Casper nurses his wounds, a girl nearby looks genuinely worried about his safety, but the young man brushes it off, insisting they reach camp immediately. Once they arrive, she waves him off, promising they will see each other again very soon. Adam can't help but tease him about how close they look, making Casper turn completely red and shy. But look, Adam reminds him they are living through the apocalypse. It is only natural for feelings to move fast. Casper fires back, asking if that's why his friend visits Caroline's cabin every single night. leaving Adam totally stunned and speechless. Casper promises his secret is safe, though he's pretty sure everyone in the camp already knows what is happening. Back at the base, Adam heads over to the blacksmith to check on their current progress. The armor master assumes Adam needs sword repairs, but he's actually searching for Caroline because Casper needs some urgent medical healing right now. Caroline agrees to help, but she's currently busy prepping a fresh set of armor for Richard. It seems Richard is desperate to keep her on his elite squad. Outside, Adam confesses that Casper already knows about their midnight meetings. Adam claims he was as quiet as Jake, but Caroline hates being reminded of our protagonist and tells her boyfriend to move on. But Adam can't stop worrying about our boy. It has been weeks since anyone has heard a single word from him. Caroline insists he must be fine since he's a grown man who can take care of himself. And trust me, she's right. Jake is currently in the dungeon, absolutely sick of eating nothing but mushrooms. Seal points out that things would be easier if our hero didn't have such a massive appetite. This is all because Jake gained a poison resistance skill, but to level it up, he has to literally poison himself. The only food around is fungus. Seal mentions that the moss is technically edible too, even encouraging our protagonist to give it a taste. Despite the struggle, they are currently camping out in that mysterious library. Jake has to keep researching to pass this challenge. Since they spent all day gathering, Seal suggests they take a quick break, but our hero's body is failing. As time ticks by, the poison is starting to spread rapidly. The priority is crafting a healing potion. With all these resources, Jake is teaching himself to make new items. Injecting a bit of mana, he continues the mixing process. If he followed the steps correctly, the brew should turn a bright red. But even after several tries, he still hasn't reached that perfect result. Seal tells our boy to stay patient. He has only been practicing for a week, but Jake is incredibly determined. He wants to try one more time, reaching for yet another mana potion to fuel the work. Seal warns that he is wasting them since their effects have a limit. Suddenly, our protagonist's body falls into deep agony. Now watch this part carefully. The poison is getting much worse, and Seal is looking terrified. Ripping off his shirt, he can see the dark infection crawling all over his skin. Back at camp, Richard calls Adam to his office to thank him. He explains the hunting squad came back empty-handed and their food supplies are hitting rock bottom today. Because of that, he wants to send Adam's team out to hunt once again, but this time, he's sending them into dangerous territory he believes they can actually handle. Adam is hesitant, but Richard promises his own personal team will deal with the deadliest monsters because he truly cares about everyone's safety. Adam wants to bring Caroline along for safety, but Richard refuses since she is far too important to his future plans. With no other choice left, Adam prepares to gather his team for the mission. But before they leave, Richard requests that Casper stays behind. The guards found a hole in the fence, and there might be other survivors hiding nearby. Since Casper is a trap master, Richard wants him on defense. Adam understands and agrees to pass the word along. Later that day, Adam's hunting group manages to take down several large animals. The prey is tougher here, but finding them is much easier. William is covered in blood but thrilled about all the tutorial points he's earning. Worried about the kid, Adam says they need to wash up soon, and William agrees. Walking alone, William thinks to himself that he is completely fed up with Richard and Adam. He calls them both useless, admitting he is bored to death staying in this camp. And that's where we leave it. William sees survivors by a water source and hides. Alright, you and I are jumping into a scene where everyone is washing up. William notices they lack a healer and starts eyeing their tutorial points, but his stalking gets him spotted. Noises erupt from the bushes, leaving William absolutely furious at his mistake. The group is already armed and ready to strike. Thinking fast, William plays the victim, claiming he is the only one left after his entire squad was slaughtered. The archer clearly is not buying his pathetic story. William thinks his acting is top tier, but then a literal arrow whistles right past his face to shut him up. Things get even more intense when she warns him that she never falls for lies. The warrior commands William to drop his gear and back away, and he complies immediately. Meanwhile, the archer keeps the pressure on him. William drops to his knees, but he is secretly reaching for his hidden wand. Sensing a threat, the girl lets another arrow fly without hesitation. But William was ready. He dodges and uses his wand to summon a flurry of knives, forcing the warrior to scramble behind his shield to stay alive. Now, an all-out brawl breaks out. This time, the sky is filled with a rain of deadly arrows. William is outnumbered, and to make things worse, their squad mage is finally moving in to join the kill. Now, pay attention here, because William realizes these enemies are tougher than he thought. He is pinned right in the archer's sights as the music shifts. They might be strong, but William is playing the long game. In a brutal flash, he sinks a dagger into the woman's throat, leaving a massive, fatal hole through her neck. Her death breaks the warrior's spirit, giving William the perfect opening to slaughter the remaining two in seconds. Now, our boy takes a moment to loot the rewards. Since they were level 9 and level 10, the fight was a decent boost for him, but the mood sours when a familiar voice calls his name. It is the trapper girl from his own team coming his way. She stumbles onto the scene of the massacre and freezes in pure terror at what she sees. This triggers William's dark side because he absolutely cannot leave any witnesses alive. A few minutes later, he casually regroups with the rest of his squad. Adam is relieved to see him, having sent that same girl out to find him earlier. Playing it totally cool, William lies through his teeth, saying he never saw her. He even acts worried about her being lost in these extremely dangerous woods. After returning to the library, Cecil begins searching for his human companion once again. He finds our boy collapsed on the floor, and Cecil is instantly terrified that something fatal has happened. He desperately tries to wake Jake, noticing the poison is rapidly spreading through his veins. Luckily, our protagonist had brewed several healing potions beforehand. Cecil grabs one, trying to keep whatever health points our lead has left from hitting zero. Slowly, the boy opens his eyes, waking up completely lost and confused about what just went down. Cecil has no answers either. He just found him unconscious, and even with the potion, Jake is drained of all energy as the music turns somber. It makes sense, considering he brewed over 50 potions in a single morning session. Our boy is finally learning the ropes. Cecil urges him to take a break after that, but Jake knows time is running out. He only has 2 weeks left to perfect his skills and survive this. You and I both know pushing too hard is a death sentence, but Jake is just surprised by Cecil's worry. He thinks Cecil sounds like his old coworkers who always took the easy path, terrified of any challenge. To him, that is just coward talk. Fed up, Cecil knocks the potion right out of his hand. The rare liquid is wasted across the floor. Realizing he crossed a major line, our boy offers a quick apology. Cecil is still fuming, shouting that he is not a coward, which forces our protagonist to apologize again. Because of that attitude, Cecil declares that Jake will be the one gathering mushrooms alone next time. The next day, Cecil is still missing, making our hero anxious. Still, he has to keep researching to find a cure for that poison. Now, he has begun learning to craft poisons himself. The process is almost identical to making a medicine. The real difference comes down to how exactly you manipulate the vitality of each individual ingredient. For a poison, he focuses on boosting what is already toxic. Finally, our boy crafts his first batch. Hyped by the success, he shouts for Cecil to come over and check out his work. That is when he remembers he is all alone. The creature had not come back yet, but after a few more shouts, Cecil finally appears to see what Jake wants. Our boy proudly shows off the new poison he just finished brewing. Cecil is not impressed, making Jake realize you and I are still dealing with a very angry creature. Alright, you and I are about to see our boy hit level 24 as a Viper Alchemist. He's dumping points into wisdom. All that grinding is finally paying off. Jake finally has everything he needs to evolve his class. He just has to accept the system's offer. Our boy is hoping this makes his alchemy even more broken. The system warns of adverse effects and says he won't get evolution points during the process. Knowing his progress will stall until he decides, Jake officially accepts the evolution. Suddenly, the entire library starts shaking like a massive earthquake hit. Jake starts to panic as everything falls apart. Jake tries to understand while Seal asks if he did something. Then, a mysterious wind wraps around them both, pulling them straight into a completely different dimension. Stuck in the middle of a cosmic desert, Jake tries to wrap his head around what happened. The place is totally alien, but his senses aren't screaming danger just yet. Suddenly, he feels a presence. Pale, scaly legs are approaching. They belong to a strange-looking man who clearly didn't expect anyone to drop into his private realm. Now, pay attention here. Jake's senses are suddenly going haywire. They're screaming that this being is extremely dangerous. Once again, the mysterious being asks what the hell they're doing there. Jake takes a deep breath, trying to believe he's safe, and says he's just as confused as the man is. He was just trying to evolve his class, and now he's trapped here. The pale man smiles. He tells Jake it's interesting to meet him because he is the malefic Viper himself. He tells them to get lost, but Jake is skeptical. This guy doesn't exactly look like a legendary dragon. The Viper takes that personally. His entire body begins to shift and grow, transforming into a terrifying, massive dragon. He asks if this is fitting enough. Seal is completely paralyzed, never imagining he'd stand before a god. The Viper asks if he knows him. The little creature stammers out that he's a loyal servant. Since the little guy claims to be his servant, he must be from an era before his own order. Jake isn't bowing, though. He bluntly states he's no servant, he's just there to raid the dungeon. The Viper is impressed. He built all those traps ages ago, and this kid actually survived them. That's when it hits Jake. He's standing right in front of the dungeon's creator. The deity asks what Jake thought of the weird feedings, the history lessons, and that giant mural of him doing cool stuff. Talk about an ego. It's a bit narcissistic, but the designer actually takes that comment as a huge compliment. Jake asks if he's some kind of god, and turns out, that's exactly what he is. You and I both know the grind never ends. Keep leveling, and eventually, you'll get your own dimension too. A personal dimension sounds cool, But Jake immediately rejects the idea of becoming immortal. The fact that life is fleeting is what makes it interesting. To the designer, that logic makes no sense. Even so, he likes the kid's spark. Seal is face down on the ground, apologizing for his friend's disrespect. He can't believe Jake has the guts to talk to a god like this while he's terrified. Jake doesn't have an answer. Maybe willpower? But the Viper says it doesn't work that way. Stats change your power, but your mind stays the same. Willpower only helps you endure immortality. And that's only if you already had that kind of mental strength from the very beginning. Many powerful beings have cracked under the pressure of their own minds. Time doesn't heal every wound, sometimes it just makes things worse. Jake notices the deep sadness in his voice. The legendary Viper actually seems pretty lonely. He tells the boy that the path to godhood is a lonely one. You leave everything behind. Jake feels for him. He realizes the Viper had to make some impossible choices. He puts a hand on the god's shoulder and says hiding in this dimension won't fix anything. Seal loses it. You don't just touch a god. The Viper just sighs, saying the kid doesn't get it. Jake tells him he ran because his plan failed. It's time for him to try something new. Seal is sure they're dead meat. Jake is nervous, but he stares the god down, waiting for a reaction. The Viper just treats it like a joke. He calls Jake way too emotional, and trust me, that's why the god has taken a liking to him. Alright, let's jump back in as Cecile tries to figure out what the Viper actually thinks of him. Turns out, the god barely noticed he was there. After hours of talking, the Viper finally hears his full story, especially the part about Caroline. To Cecile, knowing the whole truth, this just felt like a classic female archetype. The others just stare like he is totally clueless. They burst out laughing at his comment, which honestly just leaves Cecile feeling pretty annoyed. Still messing with the little guy, the Viper jokes that the imp must be some kind of legendary expert with women. Meanwhile, Jake realizes he missed a notification. One of his bloodline skills has finally leveled up. The Viper asks for details, and it turns out Jake's perception capacity just doubled. The god is actually impressed now, calling the boy's bloodline seriously interesting. Sensing an opening, Jake asks if the god knows more about his power, and if he can teach him. The Viper replies that the system does not play nice with sharing secrets. Apparently, things got strict after a minor god wiped out an entire musical universe. He swears it was not him, though. Jake just sighs. He expected as much, but it is still a letdown. They had a great time together, but the Viper knows it is time for them to get back to their journey. The meeting left the god reflecting on life, praising Jake for having the kind of ambition you just do not see every day. Jake is hyped. He wants to know if he passed the interview and is officially a malefic Viper alchemist. The god nods and places a hand on Jake's shoulder. Now pay attention, because he is giving him a trace of karma that makes his entire body glow. The Viper thanks them for the company. Jake waves goodbye, saying it was fun. He hopes for a reunion soon. The god realizes Jake's bloodline is terrifyingly powerful, and he will definitely be keeping an eye on him from here on out. But the god has work to do. He's been sitting on the sidelines for way too long. The malefic Viper is finally making his return. Elsewhere, a man mentions that they sent Lyra out to find William just a little while ago. This catches him off guard since he has not seen her at all. He just hopes she did not get lost out there. Back at the camp, the group is greeted by a young man who is way too proud of their new fence. Ignoring the small talk, they walk up to Casper with heavy eyes. It finally clicks for him. Lyra is not with them. All they can do is apologize. They have no idea what happened, just that she vanished somewhere in the forest. Casper is visibly furious. The group spent hours scouring the woods, but they could not find a single trace of where she went. At this point, they are completely out of ideas on what could have happened. Casper snaps, demanding to know if this is some sick joke. The young man just shakes his head. It is not. Lyra is gone, and there is nothing they can do. Hearing the truth, the young man finally breaks down in grief. 1 week later, a report comes in about William. You and I knew he was trouble, and last night, he attacked more survivors. The chief assumes he went after Hayden's group. His servant confirms it. Hayden's son was killed in the chaos. This makes everything 10 times worse. But wait, there is more to the story. William actually marked the boy's head. He left a brutal message saying that Richard says hello. Now it is just a matter of time before they retaliate. They found arrows on the camp perimeter that, by the way they were made, clearly do not belong to them. Hayden is out for blood. He wants whoever mutilated his son's body. Murder is one thing, but this was overkill. Protecting William might be more trouble than he is actually worth. The servant is just waiting for the green light. Once he gets the word, he will handle the situation. He already has spies watching William as they speak, but the chief tells him to stay hidden. He has seen this kind of drama before. The kid is talented, even if he is arrogant. If they can control him, he would be a massive asset. The servant agrees without a second thought. They head over to William and check on his progress with the stone arrows. He is finally done. It took longer than he thought, since he is still getting used to this new line of work. The woman notices he is completely covered in grease and dirt. She gives him a hug, trying to wipe some of the grime off, but he says getting dirty is just part of the job. A man nearby says grease is just a sign of hard work, but the woman thinks he should have picked up tailoring instead. Even leatherworking would be cleaner than this. But the boy loves blacksmithing, and Smith is teaching him everything he needs to know. Seeing how much he enjoys it, she just tells him to be careful. He smiles and agrees. But as they walk away, he realizes just how incredibly annoying she is. He hates that Caroline thinks she can boss him around. Trust me, if she were not so pretty, nobody would ever put up with her. Let's dive in. Because a brutal war between Richard and Hayden is about to explode. Once he clears out enough enemies and bags his bonus, he can finally ditch this place. While lost in thought, Smith asks for help with some boxes. The boy excitedly jumps in to help him out. Elsewhere, the prepared arrows are finally being delivered. He is just confused why Casper didn't go pick them up personally to clear his head. Casper admits that he just does not want to see that person right now. The delivery man assumes he means Smith, but Casper clarifies the person he is dodging is actually William. Casper is convinced the kid is hiding the truth about Lyra's disappearance, even if others believe he's innocent. He is certain there is a cover-up happening. Plus, Jake would never trust a guy like that. After that brief outburst, a heavy silence fills the tent. The man asks how long it has been since Casper slept. Annoyed, he snaps at the man to back off. If he won't help, he should just leave him alone. The man tells him suspicion is fine, and he never actually said Casper was wrong about him. With a long sigh, he comments on the way Casper has been stalking around the camp lately. It's obvious he's eyeing William like a prey animal, scaring everyone else with his dark energy. Stick with me here, they think he's going to snap at any moment. And they're totally right. The man wants to know what's up with these traps. They definitely don't look like they're for deer. Casper replies that the forest holds terrifying things, and it's time someone started hunting those things down. Meanwhile, Jake is grinding through endless push-ups until Cecile interrupts to see if he's ready yet. The boy keeps pushing. Realizing she's being ignored, Cecile asks exactly how long he's been training. Finally finishing his set, he claims he's only been training for 30 minutes. He wishes his stats were higher, but admits it's not bad for a month's work. Cecile warns him to save some energy. Jake can't hide his hype. He's finally getting out of that miserable cave for good. Cecile reminds him he still needs an antidote. The poison is spreading through his body, and it will be fatal. He has one day to fix this, but Jake is confident he'll pull it off. Back at the camp, William stays busy with small chores. Caroline stops by, mentioning Richard's armor is still being worked on. But that's not why she's here. She came to warn him about the rising danger. From now on, stay away from Hayden's camp. He plays dumb, asking if everything is okay. But the tension is clearly reaching its limit. Richard says hunting is fine. Just stay away from the enemy. He promises to be careful. Caroline is glad he listened. She tried the same talk with Casper, but the guy is just too stubborn. William can't figure out why Casper would be wandering toward enemy territory. Maybe for traps. Casper is in his own world lately, making him wonder how many tutorial points he's gathered. After their brief chat, William assures her she can trust him completely. He gives his word to avoid the enemies. As Caroline heads back, Richard asks how it went. Mission accomplished. Now she's certain that William will follow right behind Casper's trail. Now, you and I both know this was a setup. Richard thinks these two are just camp troublemakers. William isn't exactly a genius, while Casper looks like he's ready to burn the whole place down. Caroline thinks the boy is just mourning. Richard? He completely disagrees. He vanished for days after hearing about Lyra, heading deep into the woods to find the girl. Casper screams out, desperately searching for any sign. Near some monsters, a body lies by the river. It's Lyra. He scares the creatures off and collapses beside her in pure grief. Saddened and broken, he demands to know who's responsible for this absolute nightmare. Looking at her abdomen, he starts noticing the wounds. Something about them catches his eye. She was hit by daggers. He wonders who threw them, but then, a voice calls his name. Casper shouts back, demanding to know who's there as the voice calls out to him again. The entity asks if he wants her back. Desperate, he says yes and trust me. Things are getting wild. All right. You and I are diving into a story where a mysterious voice leads a boy into a hidden dungeon, and he returns, completely changed. His companions immediately saw the massive difference in him. Richard can't bring himself to trust this new Casper, while Caroline is just heartbroken over seeing her once kind friend become a total stranger. This cruel tutorial is finally ending soon, and once they're back on Earth, they can actually start rebuilding their shattered lives. She clings to hope. Maybe if Casper takes down William, he'll finally snap out of it and become himself again. Adam would be so relieved to have his best buddy back. They're all holding on to that dream, supporting one another just to ensure she and Adam can finally find their happy ending together. Caroline wipes her tears, desperate to escape this hell, while Richard just smirks at how blind people in love can be. Meanwhile, Casper sits in deep meditation within the forest until a sudden rustle in the bushes breaks the silence. Just like he thought, the man he was waiting for arrived. William acts all friendly, introducing himself with a fake smile, but Casper sees right through his lies. He simply tells the boy he's just in time. Now, pay attention here. You can feel the tension as they stare each other down. This clash was unavoidable. Caroline warned him to stay away, but with the massive grudge between these two, a face-off was the only possible outcome. Acting like a total snake, William pretends he has no idea why this is happening. That just fuels Casper's rage, knowing William is the one responsible for everything Lyra suffered. Still, William shrugs it off, calling Casper a weakling who hasn't even been farming enough points to matter. Hearing that insult makes Casper's blood boil. He flashes back to the first time he met his shy, quiet friend. The girl loved his name because it reminded her of a movie. Casper thought his name was just stupid, but Lyra strongly disagreed, calling it adorable instead. That is how she won him over, and they grew incredibly close. It was then that Lyra gathered her courage and asked if he'd go out with her. He was stunned. She immediately apologized, worried she looked like a fool in front of the guy she liked. To her shock, the boy confirmed he'd love to go out with her. But before he could even finish explaining himself, she leaned in and caught him off guard with a kiss on the cheek. Now, I know what you're thinking, this heartbreak is what changed him. William just laughs at his pain. Casper's fury reaches a breaking point. Losing her meant losing his entire world, and now he won't stop until he gets his revenge on the man responsible. William coldly points out that killing him won't bring her back. Logic doesn't matter anymore. Love is way too deep of a concept for a complete jerk like William to ever understand. William feels the provocation. Casper's strategy is working because he knows William's arrogance is his biggest weakness. After hearing that, William's mask of politeness slips as his patience hits zero. He warns Casper that if he doesn't back down, things will get bloody. But that threat only works on people who still fear death, and William is officially determined to end his enemy's life. He hurls a flurry of daggers, but Casper's spear moves in a blur, parrying every single one. William didn't expect this kind of speed. Before he can even think, Casper is already launching a counterattack. Casper throws a dagger of his own, but the blade flies way past William's face. William starts laughing, thinking the throw was pathetic, until Casper reveals he wasn't aiming for him at all, he just cut a hidden rope. Suddenly, arrows rain down. William is just glad he has enough metal on him to defend himself. While William is distracted, Casper lunges forward with a potentially lethal strike. None of the blows land, but they force William back right into the center of a massive trap. William burns magic to free his trapped foot, but that split second is all Casper needs to close in. William narrowly dodges, but the tip of the spear still leaves a gash on his face. He needs to create some distance. Casper is already starting to lose his breath from the intensity. William smirks, admitting that the kid's effort wasn't half bad. Time to get serious. He uses his magic to summon a terrifying wall of hovering, lethal daggers. Casper isn't the only one who prepared. William is certain no one could survive this next wave. Trust me, you and I won't want to miss what happens after Casper mentions that dungeon man. You and I are about to witness a soul-crushing deal where Casper stands ready as the daggers close in. The blades drop, leaving William completely stunned. Casper just traded his soul for massive power, an energy fueled by his own raw, chaotic emotions. Energy surges through his arms, the ultimate physical form of the resentment left behind by the fallen. William is in total denial. There is no way this nightmare is actually happening to him. Shaking with fear, he trips over a rock and starts begging for his life, promising to leave the camp forever. But Casper has other plans. He isn't there to kill him, he just needs William to be a witness. Dark energy floods the boy's body as he offers a cold apology for this totally pointless fight. Because of what happened to Lyra, he owes William one final strike. William is standing there, totally clueless about the meaning. Pay attention to this as Casper says his final goodbye. A monstrous sphere of black energy begins to swallow everything. In a flash, he vanishes, leaving William standing in the clearing all alone. Elsewhere, a dark ritual is underway. Casper suddenly appears inside the magic circle, announcing that his mission is finally complete. A mysterious voice praises his effort. Even if the ritual was messy, the boss is satisfied with the results. A skeletal hand reaches out, commanding the boy to rise. It is time to claim his place in the afterlife. Back in the clearing, William is still reeling, unable to process that the boy just ended his own life. Still, that enchantment was legendary, a terrifying power fueled strictly by the weight of pure emotion. He doesn't care about the cost, he just knows he needs that power for himself. Meanwhile, Jake is running out of time to stop the poison. As he meditates, Cecil can feel the situation getting desperate. Cecil can hardly watch his friend suffer. Jake is clearly in agony, and Cecil wonders if he would even have the guts to face that kind of fear. Without even opening his eyes, Jake tells the creature to quit staring at him. Cecil is shocked. How did Jake know? It turns out his bloodline works even when his eyes are tightly shut. You and I can see he feels everything. But Cecil is the only one actually panicking about the clock. He asks how long Jake plans on sitting there, but the boy just says he's not moving until he's ready. Cecil warns him to start moving because they have less than 1 hour before this challenge is over. It is just like college students always panic on the eve of a big exam. But he learned early on that the best move is to stay calm, just like aiming an arrow. You start with a slow, deep breath and let the tension fade away. You prep your whole body and let the world vanish until that perfect, golden moment finally arrives. Then, you fire. Cecil asks if he tried praying, but it is obvious Jake does not buy into that stuff. Cecil figures it is a joke, especially since they literally met a god just 1 week ago. Jake doesn't see it like that, even with the blessing he got. Cecil is dying to know the details, since that status bonus was huge for his alchemy. It really helped him during those intense alchemy sessions. He knows the Viper would probably just ignore his prayers. Still, he starts praying anyway, jokingly threatening to haunt the god if he actually dies right here. Even in this afterlife setting, the weight of those words leaves Cecil absolutely terrified. He gets so worked up that he starts hitting him, scared that the Viper will kill them both now. Jake just grins, claiming the Viper actually enjoyed that. He can feel a strange sense of encouragement coming from the god. Suddenly, his body starts vibrating. Then the coughing fits begin, making Cecil more worried than ever. Maybe this wasn't a sign from the Viper after all. Looking at the blood and grime on his hands, he realizes things are looking bad. He forces himself up and tells Cecil not to worry. His story isn't ending here, not after everything he's endured. Jake has faced countless enemies and pushed his body to the breaking point many times before. He's even had to say goodbye to friends. All that sacrifice is for nothing if he can't beat this challenge. He tells Cecil to get ready because they have work to do. He starts grabbing his tools and ingredients. He needs to extract juice from those rare mushrooms and mix it with blood and aged moss. This is going to take time, and he can't lose focus. Cecil keeps bringing ingredients while the clock ticks down. While he works, he holds specific stances to keep his stamina from dropping too low. The bubbling potion means it is working. Now, he has to infuse his own mana at a slow and steady pace. He pushes until the final stage, and trust me, you and I are just as relieved when the system confirms the antidote is ready. Alright, you and I are about to see if Jake's gamble pays off or ends in total disaster. In minutes, the potion would lose its form. He wasn't sure if it worked, and he had almost no time left to test it. Besides, the timer to finish this insane challenge was basically at 0. Knowing he has no other choice, Jake prepares to swallow the liquid. He downs the whole bowl, and it is more painful than he imagined. With the bowl empty, see last how he felt. Jake just shook his head. He didn't feel any different at all. Suddenly, the clock ran out. A wave of agonizing pain exploded through every single part of his body. Sele watched in terror as Jake doubled over. Inside, he could feel the venom tearing through his entire nervous system. The poison had mutated, growing even more lethal. Every single breath felt like he was inhaling shards of broken glass. In despair, he realized the toxin was claiming him. Slowly, his strength just started to flicker out into the darkness. The toxins peak, forcing him to cough up blood. If that poison reaches his heart, it is game over for our hero. There would be no way to reverse it. Sally scrambled to the cabinet to grab any health potions she could find. Lying there, Jake replayed every step in his mind. He couldn't figure out where he had gone wrong. He did everything right, so why is he failing? Now pay attention here, because his heart is about to be completely overtaken. His legs gave out, and he crashed to the floor. Everything went blurry as Sale begged him to just stay awake. Time slowed, and his heart grew weaker. In the darkness of his unconscious mind, he saw a vision of Adam. The man asked if he was really giving up now. Even with 0 strength left, Jake refused. Dying like this? Not an option. Fighting through the agony, he dragged himself up and vowed to crush the poison burning inside him. He was certain he'd be the one standing at the end. Suddenly, Jake stood up, eyes burning as his heart surged with power. Sele scrambled toward him in a panic, arms full of health potions and looking like a total mess. Jake was awake and still hurting, but alive. Sele just stood there, unable to process the miracle happening in front of her. Gasping for air, Jake realizes the antidote is finally working. Seeing the dark spots vanish from his skin, he confirms that he actually survived this impossible test. He was battered, but fully healed. The two of them immediately started celebrating this massive, hard-earned victory. Little did they know, the Viper had been watching their every move from the shadows. It knew the potion wasn't perfect, but the boy's sheer will bridged the gap. His own perseverance is what actually saved him. The beast had chosen correctly. Then, the system chime rang out. Jake had officially succeeded. The dungeon was set to collapse in a few hours. That was all the time they had to pack their things. Jake assumes they're leaving together, and honestly, this is the part of the journey you and I were hoping for. Sele was stunned, asking if Jake really wanted her to come. Jake just shrugged. No way was he leaving her behind. The little imp was still struggling to process the kind words she had just heard. They had been through hell together, making them true companions. Hearing that, it hit Seele right in the heart. Jake laughed as the little imp started crying happy tears, but system alerts quickly cut their emotional moment short. Notifications are flying everywhere. Time to see the rewards for all that suffering together. There were so many. That's 4 points to all stats, plus 4 extra points specifically for his vitality. He got new boots and extra inventory space, too. When Seele asked, Jake told her he felt stronger than ever. Getting his weapons back was a relief. Seele joked that he might be a bit rusty after a whole month. Maybe, but his level was the real problem. His alchemy was high, but as an archer, he was still just level 9. He had no idea what the forest monsters were like, but he knew he had a lot of grinding to do. Seele felt a bit useless since she didn't have a level system or any powers to offer him. If things got too dangerous, Jake offered to put her back in the necklace, but Seele flat out refused. She'd spent a millennium inside that cage and had zero intention of going back. After a long trek, the exit finally appeared. Jake asked if she was ready to finally breathe some fresh air. Finally, they stepped outside. The view was breathtaking, way better than the dingy dungeon they had been stuck in for weeks. Jake looked to the side and saw. A dinosaur? Yeah, it didn't take long for hostile company to find them. It would have been nice to enjoy the scenery for at least more than 5 seconds. But Jake saw this as the perfect warm-up, a chance to see what his new skills could really do in battle. 4 level 24 monsters against 1 level 9? Trust me, you and I are going to want to see how this ends. Alright, stick with me because Jake is about to show these monsters he is not on the menu. His plan is simple. Split them up and rain down death from a distance with his lethal arrows. The first 2 go down in a heartbeat, their bodies hitting the dirt before they even know it. Suddenly, Cecile screams a warning about the rest of the pack flanking from behind. One of them is way too fast, but Jake barely dodges. He starts to wonder if all that time spent away from the heat of battle has made his reflexes sluggish. Meanwhile, Cecile is losing it, completely paralyzed by pure panic. Just as he is about to become lunch, the dinosaur strangely hesitates, holding back its killing blow. Jake seizes the moment to draw his blade, instantly grabbing the ravenous beast's attention. He has no time to fully unsheath his sword, forced to roll away at the last second. In one fluid motion, he manages to land a sharp, slashing counter. That one hit is enough. The creature collapses, twitching and gasping for its final breath. Only one left, right? Wrong. That is when his sharp instincts warn him that something much bigger is happening. Watch this, because more dinosaurs were lying in wait, and they finally decide to show their faces. Maybe this is a gift from the universe, the ultimate test to see how far his powers have truly evolved. He is not backing down. The entire pack charges at him with terrifying speed. But Jake is built different. He is faster than anything they have ever faced, cutting down 3 of the beasts before they even realize he has moved. He will keep swinging until he stands at the absolute top. Another one tries to sneak up from behind, but Jake survived the dungeon. He has seen it all before. This creature is not even a threat. Jake just keeps reaping lives, carving a path through the monsters. There is absolutely no way these beasts can stop him now. The survivors are actually hesitating now, clearly terrified of this human. Since they will not move, Jake goes on the hunt. He lunges at them like a starving predator, raising his blade with a roar of pure battle fury. Up on a boulder, Cecile is doing everything he can to stay far away from those snapping jaws. Suddenly, arrows whistle through the air. The dinosaur is caught off guard as its neck is pierced, sending it crashing to the ground for good. The clash is over as quickly as it started. Nothing is left breathing on the battlefield. With the danger gone, Cecile realizes he probably should have just stayed safe inside the Momo. Jake admits that fight was tougher than he expected. Still, he is shaking off the rust and getting back into his rhythm. Cecile knows he is no fighter, and the last thing he wants is to be dinosaur food, but another surprise is coming. Jake just racked up a massive pile of tutorial points, hitting level 13 and earning 4 whole new attribute points to spend. With that kind of progress, he must have gained extra experience for taking down those high-level monsters. Cecile is convinced that Jake is going to surpass everyone else very soon. He even unlocked a new skill called Powerful Shot, which boosts his damage the longer he charges his bowstring. The longer the draw, the deadlier the impact. It is the perfect tool for setting up a devastating ambush. If he combines this with his alchemy skills and adds some poison, that is a lethal combo that absolutely nobody will see coming. Once again, his heightened perception picks up on something strange. I know what you are thinking, but check this out. Jake feels something miles away, something incredibly powerful and dangerous that he just cannot ignore right now. Cecile wants to run the other way, but Jake is not interested in playing it safe. Whatever that power is, it is worth the risk. Meanwhile, back at Richard's camp, Caroline is just getting ready. Adam finally walks in, looking for any kind of update on what happened to Casper. There is no news yet, but Richard is planning to send out a scout squad tomorrow. Looking at Adam's face, You can tell he is absolutely heartbroken. She leans in, trying to convince him that everything will work out fine. Adam is worried, but the whole camp knows Casper was hunting William before they both vanished. He asks if Caroline heard anything from William before he disappeared. She lies straight to his face, promising to tell him the second she finds anything out. She gives him a warm hug, but her expression tells a completely different story. She is clearly hiding something. Flashback to a therapy office where William is asked why he is there. Turns out, he was court-ordered. The doctor asks if he understands his sentence. Apparently, he has been flagged for a lack of empathy and violent tendencies. And that is where we leave it, with William trapped in a deep, fearful silence. Chilling, right? Alright, you and I are diving into a story that starts with a cold-blooded murder, a brother killing his own sibling. Glued to his phone, he barely nodded. His father just wished he showed a little more excitement for the new arrival. Labor had been going on for hours, and they really needed to be there to cheer up his mother. The doctor walks up with a grave face. He needs a private word with William's father because things just went sideways during delivery. The family is safe, but the newborn is under heavy observation. Look at William's eyes, they're already turning ice cold. 1 day old, and the kid is already a problem. William stares at the infant, thinking about how pathetic it looks. Years fly by and the baby grows up. His mother asks him to grab the morning paper, so he heads out to the mailbox. He starts flipping through the mail. Suddenly, one specific envelope grabs his attention. It is a letter from his dream university. He runs back home full of pure joy, telling his parents he got accepted, but they do not even care. That is when he tells them exactly which college just accepted him. He only applied because his counselor pushed him. Now his parents only care about one thing: is the tuition going to be expensive? He has no idea what the cost is. Even though the news is incredible, they simply cannot afford a school like that right now. William tries to explain that this is one of the top universities in the entire world. They are proud, sure, but with a younger brother to care for, that kind of expense is impossible. The news leaves him totally crushed. He walks over to the crib of his brother, who suffers from chronic health issues. To him, this creature is not even a real human. This kid, who cannot even breathe on his own, is now more important than him. Pay attention here, because this is where William decides the baby is just a burden that needs to be removed. He thinks it should just disappear forever. Then he reaches out and shuts off the machine, keeping the child alive. Immediately, the infant begins to struggle, gasping for air. It does not take long before he loses consciousness completely. His parents sprint into the room in a panic, unable to believe the horror William has actually committed. His mother shoves him aside to reach the baby. In William's twisted mind, he honestly thinks he just solved their money problems. They are frantic, but the baby is not breathing anymore. William just stands there, thinking their grief is totally pointless. The child was ruining everything. His father grabs him, trembling with rage, demanding to know why he would do something so evil. Once again, William claims he was just helping the family. Flash forward 1 year later, and he is rotting in prison. He introduces himself to the prison staff and takes his daily meds, the only thing keeping him from losing his mind. Taking those pills every day makes it impossible to think straight. He has completely lost track of how much time has passed. He has been in that cell forever, still clueless as to why his parents abandoned him or why he is even still there. Gradually, his mind snaps, paving the way for an even greater madness. Now, get this, a system notification suddenly appears, announcing his total transmigration. He was confused at first, but now he is in a forest, heading back to camp after fooling everyone. Nobody suspects his true nature. The only person who ever doubted him has already disappeared. William is obsessed with finding this new power for himself. But first, he has to focus on recovery. Even though Casper did not mean to kill him, the energy from that blast nearly finished him off. William is dying of thirst. If he does not find water soon, he's going to pass out. Then, he spots a massive lake. Talk about lucky. But wait, he is not alone. He quickly ducks behind a rock to see who is creeping up. Now watch closely because he definitely knows exactly who this figure is. Moments ago, Jake analyzes the traces of the blast and the residual energy it left behind. It was as if a massive bomb exploded in that spot. The person responsible might still be lurking. If he moves fast, he will find them soon. Seal wishes him luck before retreating back into the necklace once again. Jake could hunt as many monsters as he wanted, but this creature was not about to die on its first day out. Jake agrees, but tells the beast not to annoy him later when things get boring. He stores the monster inside his necklace. Finally, it is gone. But Cecile mentions that even from inside the charm, he can still hear everything happening outside. Jake just smiles and says he already knew that, but the truth is, he was lying. He heads to the river to grab some water. He asks if the creature can sense anyone while inside, because someone is clearly hiding behind that rock. But it feels nothing. It could only see whatever was directly in front of that necklace. Alright, stick with me because you and I are about to see a predator become the prey. Even if this hidden guy was powerful, Jake sensed he was no real threat. To keep his legendary gear a secret, our main character decides to play dumb for now. The moment Jake calls out, William realizes his cover is blown and has to step out. He reveals himself with a fake smile, claiming it has been ages since he saw another human. Jake claims he just left a cave and is simply exploring. William thinks he is safe and unrecognized. Maybe Richard was the one hogging the spotlight before. They shake hands, and Jake asks a question. He asks about nearby camps, and William offers a tour of his own. Jake is definitely intrigued by the news of multiple settlements. Jake asks who is in charge. William explains that Richard and Hayden lead rival camps that are currently locked in a brutal power struggle. This news annoys Jake. Fighting monsters is hard enough without having to worry about human drama and politics. William claims to know the safest paths and offers to guide him straight to Richard's base of operations. Jake agrees, hoping to spot a few familiar faces among the survivors. With that, the two set off toward the camp. William is secretly fuming because he realized he never even caught the kid's name. Jake just never mentioned it. Using his sharp perception, Jake spots that William is a summoned player at level 24. Trust is out of the question, but Jake knows he can handle any betrayal. Meanwhile, William is blabbing about a blacksmith named Smith. Jake cuts through the chatter, asking if anyone named Adam is living at the camp. Now pay attention here. William suddenly starts acting like danger is lurking nearby, but Jake knows his own skills are telling him the area is actually completely clear. William claims he has a mana detection skill and warns that a dangerous trap is waiting right up ahead. Unsure of William's goal, Jake decides to tread carefully and play along for now. Seeing Jake's bow, William tells him to scout ahead while he stays back to provide cover if things get messy. The acting is so terrible that Jake can barely keep a straight face, but he says he trusts him anyway. William is convinced this kid is the same one who ambushed Nicholas not too long ago. Showing his true colors, he prepares a backstab, but Jake's senses are sharp, and he feels the daggers coming. He spins around with his bow ready, effortlessly knocking every single blade out of the air. Jake mocks the clumsy trap. William snarls that this entire tutorial is full of idiots, and now he is going to end Jake's life. Jake bolts for the forest. William knows he cannot let him open up the distance or his daggers become useless. He plans to keep the pressure high to ensure his victim has zero chance of escaping. You and I saw that coming, right? William misses his throws but thinks he has Jake trapped, until an attack suddenly guts the boy's stomach. William is confused. He has no idea what just happened, or why his target suddenly stopped dead. Jake knows William thinks he only fights at long range since he is just an archer. Big mistake. Jake pulled a hidden dungeon dagger and slashed him. Now, William is going to bleed out. Jake decides to end the pain early. William falls into pure despair as he feels his life fading away. Clutching his staff, William unleashes a secret skill he was saving for Richard, the powerful shining steel. Jake is actually shocked as a massive, blinding energy starts to condense with intense power. Flashback to a week ago. William was begging Richard for mana potions because he was struggling to hunt monsters. With other survivor groups causing trouble, supplies were low. William actually tried to demand some potions from Richard's own private reserve. Richard shuts him down hard, telling him to go bother someone else for handouts. He dismisses William completely, claiming he has much more important things to deal with. William puts on a sad face, but it is all a lie. While out hunting later that day, his resentment for Richard starts to boil over. He decides right then and there to steal every single potion the camp has left. He cannot wait to kill off every single person there. He just needs a bit more power and the perfect chance. After a kill, the system grants him a new skill. It fires blinding energy that deals damage based on how much mana he burns. Empowered by this massive new destructive force, William feels more motivated than ever. Back in the present, he fires it at Jake. A strange metallic sphere appears, and Jake's instincts scream for him to move. The sphere detonates in a massive explosion, releasing a flash so bright that Jake has to shield his eyes. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see how he survives this insane shrapnel storm. Alright. You and I are about to see a fight where our main character gets hit hard and sent flying. Despite the shallow cuts, he had no idea what kind of weird technique just caught him off guard. Even with his special skills, his reaction time was too slow. No time to process William was still dangerous. The enemy bolted, taking his chance to run. But Jake knew he couldn't let him get away after that. Unfortunately, his injuries were slowing him down. Then, out of nowhere, his necklace started glowing with a blinding light. Seal checked on him, and Jake admitted he'd barely blocked the fatal hits. With his body trashed like this, he had no choice but to let the kid escape for now. Jake felt like a total amateur for letting his guard down. He knew better than to underestimate anyone in this game, and yet, he still got played. Seal wondered if William caused that massive crater, but Jake wasn't so sure. He'd been stuck in that cave for so long that he had zero clue how strong the other survivors were. If that was just an average fighter's power level, then he was heading for some serious trouble very soon. Seal wanted to find a new dungeon to hide in, but Jake refused. He needed to grind levels right now. Back at camp, the girls were admiring some gear. Those gloves were high quality, custom made specifically for one person. He'd been grinding so hard lately that she wanted to surprise him with a gift he'd actually appreciate. Her friend teased that they made a cute couple, which brought back memories of her own husband. It was a bittersweet, comforting moment. Earth was a mystery now. Maybe her husband was stuck in a different tutorial, leveling up just like they were. Maybe other tutorials were actually easy. Hopefully, he didn't have to fight these insane monsters every single day. She thanked Caroline for the kind words, but her heart only wanted one thing: to see her husband again. There are still 30 days left, but the survivor count has already dropped massively. Caroline believes they can return to their normal lives after this. A man suddenly burst in, looking for Caroline and asking if she was around. He delivered the news fast. It was a major emergency. Richard needed her help, and he needed it right now. She rushed after him, wondering if the situation was truly as desperate as he made it sound. William was lying on the bed with his body completely mangled. No one knew what happened. They just found him abandoned in the forest. The kid was clinging to life. They suspected one of Hayden's goons did this. She thanked the messenger for the heads up and then made a request. She told him to grab a bucket of water. He took off, leaving the rest of them with the dying boy. Richard demanded to know the damage. To be honest, Caroline had no idea how the kid was even still breathing. He asked if she could pull off a miracle, seeing as she's the top-tier healer in this whole tutorial. Now, pay attention to this. Caroline could try, but she asked if saving him fit their secret plan. Richard couldn't just let the kid die. Caroline warned him the poisoning was lethal. There was no guarantee she could save him. William had been a massive headache for them. Maybe it was better to just let nature take its course. Richard gave Caroline plenty of freedom because she was a loyal soldier, but he was still the boss. He ordered her to heal the boy, and he expected her to obey his command without any question. With no room for argument, she decided to try. Caroline pressed her hands onto William's chest and started the healing process immediately. The damage was far worse than she'd imagined, but slowly, the boy began to stabilize. Richard had no clue what could have caused this. He suspected Casper, but Caroline disagreed. Casper usually stuck to magic and curses. What they were looking at was definitely poison. A beast might be the cause, but that abdominal cut was made by a blade. Okay, you and I are probably thinking the same thing, an ambush. But Hayden never used poison this strong. Maybe a new player was in the mix? Either way, the situation was getting more complicated by the second. Over in the camp, Adam was dropping off some supplies for Joanna. She gave him a massive smile and thanked him for the help. He saw a crowd gathering near the infirmary and asked what exactly was going on. She mentioned seeing a scout frantically looking for Caroline, yelling that it was a total emergency. Adam worried a hunting team got wiped out, but the woman said it was actually about William being brought in half dead. Hearing that name, Adam was completely shocked. Richard was busy shoving the curious crowd back. Over by Caroline, Adam asked for the real story. She explained she was actually coming to see him before this crisis forced her to stay and help. William would likely pull through. She planned to move him to a private cabin so he could recover in peace. So, that's where we leave it for now. Adam offered to do whatever was needed, but Caroline said she'd see him later. You and I are starting a story of traps. Adam agreed, but he worried main character William was in trouble. They needed to find Casper immediately. As more time passed, he felt like he was losing control of everything, but he refused to let hope die. Suddenly, William flashes back to a therapy session from his life on Earth. It was surreal. The therapist was digging for his thoughts, but the boy's mind was blank, like he'd completely forgotten the question. To his mother, it felt like she had lost both of her sons at the same time. When the therapist asked how that felt, being compared to his sick brother felt like a total betrayal. The doctor just stared, waiting for some kind of response. With a fake smile, he muttered an apology. But the truth? He didn't give a damn. He'd say anything just to escape that room. Richard wanted to know if the treatment was actually showing results. William finally snapped out of it, realizing the man in front of him wasn't his father. Reality was starting to blur. He saw the therapist again, but this time, the words coming out of her mouth were about tutorial points. She asked if he remembered their previous discussion, but he was completely lost in the chaos of his own mind. Once again, she insisted they'd already covered it, the one thing that was still missing from his life. Now, pay attention here, because this is where the nightmare gets truly personal. She called him a pathetic, broken boy, someone who was completely and utterly unworthy of power. William stared at the grotesque, twisted figure standing before him, having no idea what it even was. Then he saw the man who had stabbed him. The mere sight of that archer sent a wave of pure terror through his soul. He was trapped, unable to run from the suffocating fear. Everyone was laughing, looking down on him like he was a complete failure, crushing what little hope he had left. Finally, the boy clawed his way out of the darkness. He looked at his hands, realizing it was all just a horrific dream. Richard and Caroline were waiting. They hoped he was rested, because it was time for a very serious talk. As he sat on his cot, Caroline leaned in to check on him. He had woken up drenched in cold sweat, looking absolutely terrified. He claimed he was fine, even though he had no clue how he ended up in this camp. They told him a scout found him passed out in the woods. He tried to claim he was only looking for Casper. Richard wasn't buying it. He knew the kid went out there to hunt Casper down and demanded to know the truth. William realized he'd been careless. He couldn't believe they had seen right through him, even though it was incredibly obvious. He'd been playing hero for too long just because he had raw strength, but he was missing experience and tact. Frustrated, he balled his fists. Richard just smiled, saying he knew exactly his type. A young talent with massive potential, someone Richard was very interested in. William played dumb, asking why he'd think that. Richard replied that he'd seen it the moment they met in the forest. To him, William had the cold eyes of a living weapon. The boy gestured that he wasn't looking to be just another grunt. Okay, I know what you're thinking, but Richard doesn't want a grunt. He wants William in his elite force. He promised that he and Caroline would have his back. They weren't offering a job, they were offering a partnership. Still skeptical, William asked what was stopping him from just killing them both right then and there. Sure, killing them would give him levels and points, but as an ally, he'd be worth so much more. A small, sharp smile spread across the boy's face. He'd finally found someone who saw his true value at last. They shook on it, sealing a very dangerous deal. As they left, Richard asked Caroline to accompany him until the boy recovered. But William hated the idea of being left alone without anyone watching his back. He reminded himself they were partners now. He could do what he wanted, and once he healed, they'd find who attacked him. Even though he felt he had the upper hand, he still couldn't believe how fast things had changed. Outside, the two schemers noted that everything was going exactly according to their plan. Richard bragged about how easy it is to handle kids who think they're deep. Just say the right words, and they're yours to control. 1 hour ago, they were debating whether to kill him. Caroline had been all for finishing him off right away, but Richard saw a better tool. At first, she was skeptical, mostly because the boy was so damn arrogant. He acted like he was invincible, but after getting thrashed like that, his ego had to be in pieces. Richard is certain his trust won't return. You and I are about to see things get even darker. All right, stick with me, because you and I are about to see just how ruthless this world really is. A few hollow compliments are all it takes to turn him into a loyal puppet, but she's still worried about a future betrayal. Luckily, Richard has the perfect tool for the job, a specific skill that Caroline is dying to know about. He reveals he unlocked it just a few weeks ago after finally wrapping up a specific mission. The system is pushing him to unite the survivors and crush any rivals. He even got a killer skill that flags whenever an ally is acting disloyal. Caroline immediately starts panicking, wondering what the system actually says about her. Richard reassures her, saying she has been faithful since day one and he's never doubted her for a second. While she's overthinking things, he's already deep into the manipulation, using William as a tool to purge anyone stepping out of line. He has to keep the momentum going, because that's exactly what a real leader would do. Out in the open, Caroline keeps digging for more info on the skill. For now, the boy is still loyal and no threat. Growth isn't always a straight line, but he's certain they'll succeed. Still, Caroline can't shake this uneasy feeling. She knows Casper is gone for good. That's when he reminds her this isn't about being kind. When it comes down to it, William is just an animal. Useful for now, but still just a beast. You can feed him and build up his loyalty. But Richard isn't lying to himself about this reality. Now watch this. Because once Leader Hayden falls and the mission ends, he's planning to discard that dog without a second thought. Currently, there are a few rats in the camp. First up is the blacksmith, who's still hard at work. Bertram is also on the hit list, along with Adam, who's been acting super suspicious lately. He's confident he'll take care of them soon. Meanwhile, back in the forest, our protagonist has recovered and is back on the hunt. His target is a massive ostrich, totally clueless about the deadly end heading its way. He carefully preps his arrow, channeling a brand new skill into the shot as power begins to surge through his fists. He just needs a few more seconds, but the bird has a sixth sense. Suddenly, the imp pops up with a handful of mushrooms. The sudden noise tips off the ostrich that it's about to become someone's dinner. The bird bolts, but Jake has already gathered enough juice. The arrow screams through the air, carrying a massive amount of momentum. It lands a fatal hit, completely obliterating a tree in the process. The imp is left totally stunned. Jake explains that what she just saw was his new skill at its maximum charge. I know what you're thinking, why not use that on William? But Jake explains the skill has some massive, dangerous flaws. To deal real damage, he has to stand perfectly still. This specific shot took 12 whole seconds. His arms felt like they were going to drop off. It's great for a stealthy ambush, but in a fair fight, no one would expect it. The system pings him with the good news. Defeating the creature just pushed him up another level. Leveling is starting to crawl. He figures the other survivors have already cleared out all the high-level monsters. All that's left are these weak mobs that barely give any experience points at all. The imp suggests going deeper into the woods, an idea he hates, but Cecil is absolutely right about the necessity of it. The real issue is running into other survivors, or worse, finding out that there's actually nobody left alive out there. He decides to push deeper into the forest while carefully avoiding any existing camps. He has zero interest in getting dragged into someone else's messy conflicts. Cecil plays along, but she knows he's not just avoiding fights. The morning passes as their hunt continues. Jake manages to scavenge some eggs, and even struggles through a bit of fishing. By early afternoon, he stumbles upon a hidden dungeon. The entrance looks strangely familiar. Cecil notices there are even fewer mushrooms around this time. A notice pops up saying he can enter and leave whenever. It seems way safer than the last challenge. Since he desperately needs the experience, this might be the only real option he has left. His main goal is simple: take down the boss of this place. Walking in and killing a monster sounds easy enough, even with the risk. It isn't long before he spots a giant badger. Cecil is nervous, but she knows Jake finally found what he was looking for. These badgers are way stronger than forest mobs. Terrified, she decides to hide back inside her necklace, letting him know he can call her if things get really ugly. Trust me, you and I are about to see if Jake can handle these two monsters alone. Stick with me, you and I are about to watch this kid hunt some small, ferocious beasts. The arrows start flying immediately. The first one goes down fast, but his follow-up shot misses the second beast entirely. Now, he has zero time to dodge the incoming strike. He must prevent those dangerous jaws from hitting any of his vital spots. He uses his forearm as a meat shield, taking a brutal bite. Yeah, that definitely looks like it hurts. But that was the plan. Now, he's got the monster exactly where he wants it. He pulls an arrow and drives it straight into the badger's chest to finish it. This was his plan from the start. Since its level is so high, the experience gain is massive. Level up. Now, he's not even interested in hunting the boss anymore. He's going to spend a few hours grinding more kills. He's totally committed to leveling up now that he knows the biggest threat is just that poisonous bite. Since he's a malefic viper alchemist, the poison barely even affects him. It's not a problem at all. This lets him wipe out these creatures without worrying about the risk of being poisoned to death. After a while, he's feeling stronger. This training session is definitely serving its purpose. Suddenly, Seal speaks up from the necklace. She's found something incredible that he hasn't come across in a long time. He finds a treasure chest tucked away in the dungeon. It's about time some good loot dropped. He picks up the box and flips it open. Inside is the dagger of chilling wind. It deals ice damage, making enemies literally freeze up and catch the chills during combat. That's not all. He just unlocked a brand new archer skill, the Twin Fang style. It gives a massive boost to agility and strength when using the right weapon. He used to fight with an arrow as a second blade, but not anymore. Looks like the system finally recognizes that he's more capable now. Now, pay attention, this is where things go from 0 to 100 real quick. A massive, bone-chilling roar suddenly echoes through the entire cave. That can only mean one thing: the boss is here. Deep in the back of the cave, he spots the terrifying source of that roar. This is definitely the Nest Mother. And get this, the system won't even show her level. There's no other data available. That usually means her power level is way off the charts. Seal tells him to get out while he still can, but Jake isn't budging. He remembers what the artificial intelligence told him. It mentioned something about legendary beast lords, and this monster in front of him definitely fits that description. Seal asks why he's so sure. Simple: if the creature is too strong to even see its level, that's a boss. At least, that is standard video game logic. He'll open with a poison arrow and then a heavy charged shot. He can't miss this opportunity. At times like this, Seal's just wishing she had stayed back in the library. He lines up his bow, hoping to end this whole fight with one perfect strike. The energy finally begins to charge up. The monster hasn't even noticed he's there yet. Jake locks in with maximum focus, counting the seconds until it's time to fire. The moment he reaches the limit, he lets it fly. This shot is visibly way more powerful than the first time he used it. But wait, the creature actually senses the danger. I think you and I are both getting a little worried for Jake now. The arrow misses its mark, only grazing the beast's paw. Hopefully, the poison still manages to spread anyway. But the beast is smart. Knowing it's been poisoned, it doesn't hesitate to rip off its own flesh to stop the spread. Jake realizes he's in deep trouble. The Beast Lord is already charging him down while he scrambles to prepare another arrow. He fires a basic shot this time, but the monster lets out a soul-crushing, deafening roar. The sound waves are so intense they shatter his arrow mid-air. It's also starting to blow out the boy's hearing. He didn't expect a sonic attack. This thing is a total nightmare. Stunned with his hands on his head, he gets slashed across the chest. He's coughing up blood, things are looking really grim. Then it hits him, he's been poisoned. He thought he was immune to venom, but he was dead wrong. The creature knows the threat must be eliminated. Jake starts running, desperately trying to gain distance so he can attack. He asks Seal for a health potion, but they've only got vials of poison left. Wait, that might be exactly what he needs. He stops running and starts baiting the monster to come closer. He reaches into his pendant and pulls out a vial of pure, concentrated toxin. As the creature lunges, he chucks the vial straight at its head. He's praying this desperate strategy actually works. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see if this crazy gamble actually pays off. Stick with me, you and I are about to watch Jake use the monster's own sonic attack to shatter a poison vial, drenching the beast in its own demise. Everything goes perfectly. The beast's eye takes a direct hit, sending it into another round of uncontrollable, agonizing screams. This time, though, Jake couldn't tell what was behind that desperate, guttural scream. Suddenly, badger minions start flooding the arena from every corner of the dungeon, swarming him from all sides. The swarm pours into the arena, looking to turn Jake into their next meal. Before he knows it, he's totally surrounded. These reinforcements were answering the boss's call. Jake grips his daggers, wishing he could have tested his new gear in a better spot. With no other choice, he draws both blades, immediately triggering his deadly twin fang style for the very first time. Combined with his new gear, these monsters didn't stand a chance against him anymore. He starts shredding through them like they're made of paper, but this fight definitely wasn't going to be free. Even as he takes a few hits, Jake continues crushing the relentless horde. Another one manages to sink its teeth in, but anyone in range gets instantly reaped. Then, a few try to sneak up behind him. Now watch this part closely. Jake tracks every single one of them, wiping out the entire mob in seconds. Only the big boss remains. Taking the lead, Jake decides it's time to put an end to this fight. Fast. The beast isn't backing down, charging straight at him. But the second it gets close, Jake lands a devastating, bloody slash. Ever since he took down that level 68 monster, his tutorial points have been stacking up like crazy. Not even Seal could believe the boy was actually capable of doing that. Exhausted, he drops his daggers and closes his eyes for a second. Then, out of nowhere, Jake starts screaming at the top of his lungs. Since he cleared the entire dungeon solo, a massive bonus reward is heading his way. Seal points out the absolute mess they made. Jake just wants a nap, but then realizes he's actually leveled up his archer class too. By taking down the dungeon boss, he jumped up 6 levels in one go. He stretches out, ready to bail before more monsters show up. But before he can take a step, the system hits him with another alert. Trust me, he didn't see this new skill coming. It lets him merge with the shadows, though he has to move in a straight line. Looking at the description, it feels weirdly familiar. He's certain he saw that name in the library once. If his memory is right, that name points directly to one of them. Seal really hopes the Viper doesn't feel disrespected, since that would be pure blasphemy. Jake figures the god isn't that petty. Besides, the skill is way too broken to ignore. 1 hour later, they're already clear of the forest. Now, we see him hanging from a tree branch. Shrouded in shadows, he vanishes and instantly pops up on top of a boulder. He tells Seal to watch as he leaps back toward the tree. Once again, he vanishes. But when he reappears by the tree, he slams his head right into the trunk. Seal's annoyed his reading got interrupted, but he likes the show. Meanwhile, Jake's clutching his head in some serious pain. Walking over, Seal admits it's actually refreshing to see there's finally something the kid isn't an expert at yet. He figures he'll master the skill in a few days since the concept is simple. To him, it's just like revving up a motorcycle. There's a bit of a kick to the movement, but he'll adjust. Seal thinks it feels more like actual teleportation. It's tough to explain, but he basically turns into a shadow himself, leaping from point to point in a straight line. The big question now is whether he can actually phase through solid objects like walls. Seal sounds disappointed that they won't be pulling off any grand heists. Jake just says the skill is still in its early stages. Once it's maxed out, it'll be unstoppable. Meanwhile, in the Hall of the Malevolent Viper, a woman carries out an ancient ritual. This ritual has been passed down for generations, surviving through countless different eras. Their hope is as endless as their faith, even though only one temple remains. The woman waits for the Viper's return, praying for a sign. Suddenly, the heavy hall doors swing open as a man enters to speak with the mistress. Clearly annoyed, she hopes there's a damn good reason for her meditation being interrupted like this. The messenger says, "The Lord Protector is demanding her presence right now. This is definitely urgent." She suspects something might have gone horribly wrong, but the messenger has zero details to offer. Hearing this, she wastes no time and starts heading there immediately. This would only be the second time in her entire life that she'd actually see the Lord Protector in person, and that's where we leave it. Trust me, you and I won't want to miss what's next. Alright, you and I are about to see if the legends are true because the missing masters have everyone panicking. Her mind is racing as she steps through the portal to stand before the Lord Protector himself. She reports for duty the moment the summons hits. The man rushes her inside, and just as she is about to ask if something went wrong, she freezes. The obelisk is suddenly glowing with a blinding light. It is a sign, an omen that the malevolent viper is finally returning after ages to restore their order to its ancient, lost glory. The woman realizes her lifelong faith was not in vain. This is it. The news is incredible, but her joy quickly turns into pure anxiety. There is so much to prepare, and she has to alert the other leaders immediately. She silently prays the viper won't arrive too fast. She just needs a few more days to get the temple ready. Now watch closely, because as the obelisk burns brighter, a strange voice suddenly echoes through the room. "Hello, little ones." The viper is back, asking if they missed him. The elder can't believe his eyes. His lord has actually come home. He apologizes for the long wait and pulls the elder into a warm hug. The woman is stunned by this kindness and those tears. This is not what she expected. She had dreamed of this moment her entire life, but the reality is nothing like her imagination. It is far more human, and that is what makes it so confusing. The viper turns, curious about her identity. He learns she is the last master standing, the highest-ranking disciple. Her name, he discovers, is Vidya. She feels deeply honored to welcome him back, but stammers an apology for not preparing a ceremony fitting for a deity. The viper tells her to take it easy. He only asked for a name, not for her to bow down. Honestly, he says he should be apologizing for being late, but since he already said it to the old man, he won't do it again. That is just not his style. He tells them everything is fine. In fact, he is just impressed the order even managed to survive this long. Vidya is bright red as the deity actually pats her head. The elder is dying to know what brought him back, but he keeps his question humble and cautious. The viper is visibly uncomfortable with all this fear and formality. He has a better idea. Let's just go get a drink. The master jumps to arrange it immediately, and the viper can't help but notice her sudden burst of energy. Answering the old man, he explains his return is tied to the universe. He asks if they remember that dungeon he built during the Second Era. Apparently, someone finally beat it. That is honestly impressive even to him. "Let me share this with you," the elder asks if he has a new follower, but no. He actually made a real friend. Deep in the forest, sitting by a campfire, Jake is currently having a very serious internal debate. Is it worse that he's only eaten mushrooms for weeks, or that they're starting to taste good? Seal says it beats moss any day. Jake starts daydreaming about the steaks back on Earth. Man, he misses those more than anything right now. He asks his friend if he misses his own home planet, but the response is a cold, empty silence. Jake has noticed Seal always avoids this topic. He has never explained how he actually ended up trapped inside that necklace in the first place. Seal says it is a long story for when they're drunk. At least the guy knows what alcohol is. Suddenly, Jake's perception spikes. He senses danger and tells his friend to get back into the necklace immediately. Seal is slow to react, so Jake has to get loud. The guy still has no clue what is happening. Jake steps into the center of the clearing and calls out the intruders. He knows they are watching. They step out of the shadows, demanding to know who he is. Jake plays it cool, saying he is just an archer out on a hunt and definitely not a threat. A woman holding a scepter stares him down. "Is your name Jake?" she asks. He confirms it, but asks how she knows him. Suddenly, a massive boulder of ice drops toward him. She screams this is for Mickey as he barely dives away. He has absolutely no idea who this Mickey person even is. He tries to explain there is a huge misunderstanding. He doesn't know them, and there is zero reason for them to be fighting like this. The swordsman tells the others not to listen. Richard warned them this archer is dangerous, the same guy who almost took out the metallic mage. They are talking about William. It looks like Richard has officially put a bounty on Jake's head. Talking is useless now. Honestly, he really wanted to settle this without anyone getting hurt, but they just won't let him. Now, these 5 clowns are about to have their lives cut short. They charge in, way too confident for their own good. The warrior swings his massive warhammer, aiming to crush him in one go. The swordsman thinks he has a clear opening, but the archer vanishes like a ghost. He reappears behind them as a terrifying whistling sound begins to cut through the air. The tree was destroyed. Trust me, you and I are about to see an epic duel. Stick with me because you're about to see an elite archer meet his match. He knows exactly how to counter these skills, but that ice shield ruined his shot. To his frustration, the team is actually working together. Another glowing arrow streaks toward him, but he slips into the shadows just in time to avoid getting totally skewered. This fight is turning out to be way more work than he planned for. The warriors rush in again. Jake knows his bow is useless at this range, so he whips out 2 daggers to hold them back. He blocks the heavy strikes with his blades, but a hidden assassin is lurking nearby, just waiting for the perfect opening. Jake feels the walls closing in. He's trapped, and for a second, it looks like he's out of options. Watch closely right here. This warrior thinks he can predict exactly where Jake will reappear, but Jake takes a direct hit just to close the gap. Now the warrior is completely wide open for a counterstrike. Hammer Guy tries to end it quickly, but Jake's dagger gets up close and personal with his stomach first. Seeing his buddy get gutted like that definitely killed the warrior's confidence. The sorceress is stunned. Jake isn't even flinching at the pain. He just looks at them and asks, who is next? Weeks ago, he asked the Viper for advice on taking lives. He didn't want to be a monster, just to survive. He refuses to hurt the innocent, but lately, he's becoming a completely different man. He traded his boring office desk for a sharp blade. He doesn't regret the blood on his hands, but those violent memories haunt him every single day. Now, you and I need to hear this story from the Viper. Back before he was a god, he was just learning to be human. He actually thought he could find a place for himself in the civilized world. He was used to wild beasts. They're deadly, sure, but they're honest. Humans, they lie for a living, and that's a whole different kind of danger. Those liars were the true monsters he never expected to face. Within a single year, his supposed best friend stabbed him in the back. He gave away his trust and lost every single thing he owned in return. He was naive enough to give them a second chance, only to get burned again. The war that followed was so brutal, it wiped 9 entire planets off the map. Maybe he overreacted a bit, but hey, nobody has dared to mess with him since then. Jake wants to know the details of those 9 planets, but Viper saves that story for another day. The lesson he's teaching right now is that you must strike without hesitation and show absolutely zero mercy. After all, your enemies would never do the same for you. The sorceress is shaking after seeing her teammate get permanently put to sleep. Jake calls himself Morpheus now, and he's about to tuck the rest of them into bed. That arrogant warrior is suddenly second-guessing his sword skills. The sorceress tries to rally them, screaming for the team to hold their ground. She builds her mana, telling the guys to keep him busy while she charges her ultimate. That's a high-level spell. The knight knows he has to stall Jake for as long as possible. He charges in blindly, but Jake catches his massive blade with just 2 daggers. He tries to reset his stance, but the archer is already on top of him. The two of them trade a brutal flurry of strikes. The warrior can feel it. Jake's attacks are getting more precise with every second. Jake's looking for an opening when he spots something moving in the corner of his eye. Another charged arrow comes flying in. The explosion it leaves behind is absolutely massive. He vanished into the shadows again. They need to find him right now or it's over. Even the assassin's eagle eyes can't find a trace of him. It's like he's totally invisible. Well, his worries are over, because dead men don't worry. Jake just took another one off the board. The sorceress yells that her spell is almost ready. But the enemy archer hears something weird nearby. He warns the warrior to watch out, but the guy's already been turned into charcoal. He was too late to save his friend. Now, he's absolutely livid and seeing red. He loads a final arrow while screaming insults, but a surprise attack cuts him off mid-sentence. His head just filed for divorce from his neck. Talk about a toxic relationship. You and I know they made a huge mistake attacking our hero. Now she's covered in blood. The sorceress realizes she's finished. One final blow delivered. She charged up her ultimate just to do a whole lot of nothing. Alright, you and I are diving into a world where life and death hang by a question. Jake warns her that the train to the afterlife is arriving. He needs answers. Why did Richard and William send a whole hit squad to hunt him down? This is about cold, hard revenge. Jake was honestly baffled by the situation. From his view, everything he had done so far was just pure self-defense. But this woman, she is convinced he is the monster who started this war. It sparks a memory. William mentioned a massive conflict was already brewing. The clock is ticking. Only a few seconds remain before the sorceress has to board that final train to the beyond. Even so, Jake keeps his word. He hands her a health potion, but the sorceress just scoffs and tosses the flask into the air. She would literally rather die than live off his pity. Still, she spills everything he wants to know. Jake just stares, shocked by her stubborn, foolish pride. You can see the life draining out of her. Finally, her body hits the dirt, cold and still, leaving a very confused Jake behind. He pulls out his pendant. Seal is desperate for answers, but Jake is just as lost. He didn't start this war, and he knows it. It is hard to believe it was a misunderstanding, but the truth is clear, everyone here is being played like a fiddle. Now pay attention here. Jake knows someone in this forest is framing him, and he is not about to just sit back and take it. With the fight over, they build a massive bonfire. It is time to cremate the remains of the enemies they just took down. Seal asks if he has anything to say for the dead, but the young man just stands there, silently watching the flames roar. He eventually apologizes to the wind. If it were up to him, none of this would have happened. No one had to die today. He doesn't know how those two villains managed to trick everyone, but he vows to end this madness in memory of the fallen. Seal offers a silent prayer for their peace. After surviving this nightmare in the woods, Jake has officially reached level 31. But seeing those system notifications just makes him feel sick. It feels like he is just looting the lives of people who worked for everything. Seal tries to tell him he earned it, but Jake doesn't buy it. To him, real achievements come from slaying monsters, not fellow humans. That dungeon boss? That was a real fight that pushed him to his absolute limit. That felt like a real victory. But this was just meaningless. Seal reminds him the points are already added to his total and there is no going back now. Now he has to decide his next move. Staring at his hands, still stained with the blood of the fallen, he sinks into deep thought. He cannot just charge into Richard's camp demanding justice. As strong as he is, even he cannot take on an entire army alone. That is when his friend points out a possibility. Maybe there are not actually that many enemies left alive in the forest, but in the worst-case scenario, he could be facing hundreds of them. Right now, the young man has to stay calm and think rationally. He wonders what Adam would do. Meanwhile, deep in the woods, Richard and his group have finally gathered for a meeting. You and I both know Jake is innocent, but hearing rumors about him taking out entire squads alone even has Adam sounding shocked. Richard warns the group that Jake is no ordinary archer. He believes the kid is trying to monopolize the entire tutorial for himself. The system rewards greed, and Richard is convinced that is exactly what Jake is chasing right now in this forest. Hayden chimed in, wanting to know if Richard really believes this lone archer is the one who murdered his son. Richard is certain. It was not his own men who attacked. They saw the carnage, and none of his people could do that much damage. Even with that explanation, Hayden still wants to know how they even crossed paths with this mysterious, deadly fighter. Adam steps up to defend his old friend. He knows Jake is a loner, but he is not some degenerate who would murder for sport. Sure, he proved he was a beast in combat when they first entered the tutorial, but that does not make him a killer. They have all seen how skilled people are here. Adam is convinced there is a third party hiding in the shadows, pulling all the strings. Richard clearly hates the direction this talk is taking, but Adam will not back down, insisting there is zero proof Jake did any of this. Richard tells the others to just ignore him. He thinks Adam is just blinded by his past friendship and is not seeing the truth. To everyone else, all the evidence points directly at Jake as the #1 suspect for the killings. He tells the old man they need to be realistic. If Adam really believes his friend is innocent, what does he suggest they do? Richard proposes a plan. They team up, form a massive search party, and hunt Jake down until he is dead. Hayden is still a little bit hesitant, but he eventually agrees to a temporary alliance until this whole mess is sorted out. Adam is absolutely livid. No one listened to him. He came here to find peace, but all he found were men looking for a scapegoat. Meanwhile, the real villain is still out there, living peacefully without a single care in the world. After clearing out a few more monsters, he figures the meeting is over. He is confident his enemy's downfall is coming very soon. For all the chaos he has caused, the system actually rewards him with tutorial points, unlocking a brand new unique skill. Trust me, we are about to see just how lethal that new iron spear really is as a creature jumps out from the bushes. Stick with me, we're about to see him test a brand new skill. This dinosaur charges forward. Totally clueless, it's running straight to its death. The deceitful liar readies his spear. He throws it with every ounce of strength he has, hitting the beast directly in its neck. That new skill is definitely something else. He remembers being crushed the last time he fought Jake, but he's on a whole different level now. He starts breaking down what's left of the fallen creature. Holding its head, he's convinced he'll win the tutorial. Meanwhile, the temple mistress is shocked to hear the viper actually made a human friend. It's basically unheard of for a primordial being to befriend a mortal, especially one who hasn't even finished the tutorial yet. She has to protect her title within the order, and this man might be a serious threat to her power. One of the priests presents himself before her, having been summoned just moments ago. Since it's been an eventful afternoon, she needs him to gather some intel. She wants all the records, every single one. The man asks if there's something specific she's after. Her goal is simple. She wants to know everything about the man named Jake Tane. Finding every detail on him is crucial, because she's going to be meeting this young man very soon. Back in the forest, Jake is searching for Caroline and Adam, though the place feels empty. Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes catches his eye. Not sure who's lurking there, he tells whatever it is to step out very slowly. It's Casper, covered in blood and collapsing to the ground. He wheezes that he doesn't have the strength to take another step. Immediately, Jake asks who did this to him, knowing William and Richard were planning to attack the entire camp. None of them were spared, everyone is dead. Jake starts imagining the horrific scene where all his companions are no longer breathing. Desperate, Casper asks why he left them. Now, watch this, he blames Jake's abandonment for every single ounce of their suffering. Jake bolts upright in terror. It was all just a horrific nightmare. He looks at his hands until he realizes none of it actually happened. Seal tells him to lay off those mushrooms before they rot his brain. Maybe he's right, because these nightmares of his are getting more intense every single night. Seal heard that dreams are just the mind's way of processing trauma. Maybe Jake needs to let some things go. He might be right. Jake wonders what kind of nightmares his friend has been running from all this time. He admits sleeping was all he did while trapped inside that necklace, living his worst nightmare every single day. Plus, he's already sick of wandering these bushes. So he makes Seal a deal. He'll share his dreams if Seal explains how he got trapped in the first place. With nothing else to do, he agrees. Jake explains the dream is always about his old friends. He arrived in this world with his coworkers. He was close with some, while others were complete strangers to him. Back at his job, he was just a guy doing the bare minimum and barely talking to anyone. But once he hit the forest, everything changed fast. He thought this was a fresh start. He was dead wrong. His friends just wanted to survive, but he wanted a whole new life. It led to some nasty arguments. So he went his own way, leaving his friends vulnerable to people they couldn't trust. And in these nightmares, he always finds them lifeless. I know what you're thinking, but every time he tells the story, one element stays exactly the same. They all feel abandoned by him, claiming that everything was entirely Jake's fault. If he'd stayed to protect them, he might have actually been able to change things. Maybe his friends were right. After hearing the story, Seal tries to comfort him, acknowledging how heavy that burden is. Now it's his turn to tell the tale of how he got trapped inside that necklace. He wishes it were a better story, but he reveals that in the past, he was a lot like Jake. Ages ago, he was a low-ranking member of the cult that worshipped the evil Viper. He was a complete laughingstock. Even the novices looked down on him, but he had a small group of friends. They treated him well, so he helped test their new spells and potions. Looking back on it, he feels more like a lab rat than a friend. One day, they asked him to test a new necklace, and well, one thing led to another. He was sucked completely into that empty dimension. Luckily, he could still see everything happening on the outside. He saw the panic on their faces as they tried to free him, right until they dropped the necklace and just walked away. He still remembers the thick dust that gathered on the pendant over the years. Sometimes people would walk by and wonder where he went, but they just figured he'd vanished for good. Nobody ever truly came looking. He was just left there. While the imp was abandoned, Jake was the one doing the abandoning. But he knows Jake isn't a monster. Trust me, you and I both know life rarely goes as planned. Alright, stick with me. We are diving into a story where survival means facing the bitter ghosts of the past. It is not just the abandonment. It is the fact that they moved on so easily, leaving Jake behind like a distant memory. The real fear? Discovering that those friends he once fought for might not even be drawing breath anymore. Cecile insists there is still hope. He can deal with the grief later, but right now, his friends might need him. Jake remembers telling them he had his own goals here, advising them to stick together for survival, and promising he would stay in touch while he went his own way. Recalling those promises makes the guilt hit hard. Remorse starts to sink in for every action he has taken since. Standing up, he admits Cecile is right. He has spent way too long running away from his own problems. It is time to find Adam and settle this once and for all. At dawn, they begin their long journey. Cecile questions if he even knows the way. They have walked for hours, encountering nothing but a few savage creatures. Extremely hungry creatures. Jake tells his friend to quit whining he used a health potion and he is feeling just fine. But a potion cannot heal emotional trauma, a realization that actually makes the young man laugh quite a bit. The truth is, he has no clue where the camp is. But logic says if they follow the river, they will find it. Rivers are life. People need them for fishing, for washing clothes, and for staying alive in this brutal place. Every civilization needs water. Cecile remarks that his friend is finally starting to look like a true, seasoned hunter. A month in this hellscape teaches you things. Now, the little creature is curious. Does Jake have a speech prepared? First, he needs to scout. Casper was already setting up deadly traps before Jake even left the group. Now pay attention, because if Casper has leveled up like Jake, they are walking straight into a dangerous, magical minefield. Cecile reminds him that despite the danger, he is here for a reunion. He is here to talk to his friends. He needs to focus less on the coming conflict, and more on finding the right words for a dialogue. Some of those people are true friends, but others are far worse than enemies. If he can just talk to Adam, he can clear his name after being framed for a crime he never committed. The problem is luck. If it runs out, he will be facing a situation far more complicated than a few traps. There is nothing left to do but hope for the best and keep moving forward through the brush. Suddenly, he stops dead in his tracks. Cecile asks what is wrong, but Jake quickly signals him to be quiet. He points ahead. Do you see it? An invisible curtain is shimmering right in front of their very eyes. It is translucent, like rippling water. But Jake knows better. This is pure, high-level magic blocking their path. His vision distorts just looking at it, a clear sign of high-level magic. This barrier was built to keep intruders out or in the absolute worst-case scenario, to keep something terrifying locked inside. Right now, they do not have the answers they need. Jake wants to cross, but Cecile stops him. What if they get stuck inside and can never get back out? He could lose his chance to find his friends forever. Jake sighs, acknowledging that the risk is very real. He decides to prioritize his friends. The mystery of the barrier will have to wait for another day. He wonders what kind of hideous creature is hidden within. Finally, through the trees, he spots the camp. Cecile is impressed by his friend's perception. From his perspective, he cannot see anything but shadows and leaves. Jake sees people going through their morning routines. The houses are sturdy, well-built, and look surprisingly like a real village. There is even a blacksmith and girls sitting at a table. He is stunned. He cannot believe his eyes. You and I both know how rare a miracle is. Look. Joanna's leg is completely restored. He remembers the first night of the tutorial. She was ambushed, and he was too slow to save her. Somehow, Caroline found a way to heal her. Seeing those familiar, smiling faces brings a rare grin to Jake's face. If she survived, maybe the others did too. Now, he just needs Adam. The young man wakes up, still groggy. He decides not to wake Caroline. There are only 25 days left until this nightmare tutorial finally ends. He believes life will go back to normal soon. But first, he has a hunt scheduled in a few hours. He plans to visit the blacksmith first. Outside, the camp is already bustling with people working and surviving. He hopes for a quiet day. But then, something catches his eye. An arrow is screaming directly toward his head. It thuds into the ground at his feet. A scroll is tied tightly around the shaft of the projectile. He unfurls it immediately and freezes. It is a message from Jake, and he wants to meet right now. You and I just saw him get a message for slaying a colossal bat. Insane. Alright, you and I are about to watch our main character go from zero to absolute beast mode. With his new spear, he's tearing through these monsters like they're nothing. He's totally unhinged and loving every single second of it. He's clearly getting a kick out of this. Their bodies drop to the dirt, completely lifeless. He spent the whole morning hunting and testing his new skills. Even with the struggle, this is the life he always wanted. Covered in monster guts, he's never felt more powerful. Normally, he would have cleaned up before heading back to the base. But with Richard backing him up, he doesn't give a damn. If he looks like a monster himself, no problem. That naive act isn't fooling anyone anymore. Now, he's finally got the power to match his ambition. Back at camp, he notices the silence. Usually, it's packed. But now everyone is crammed inside one of the main cabins. Something is going down in Caroline's tent, but he's not about to play the concerned hero just yet. If it's worth his time, Richard will fill him in. Inside, a high-stakes meeting is already in progress. Tossing an arrow on the table, the young man explains that someone went for Adam. It wasn't an attack, but a message. Jake wants to meet. Richard takes the arrow, his gut telling him that this whole thing smells like a total trap. But Adam disagrees. He genuinely believes Jake just wants to talk and negotiate some kind of peace between the groups. Now pay attention here, because this is where the mind games really start. Richard finds that talk hard to believe. He thinks the boy knows he's the target, and is trying to make the first move before Richard can strike. Joanna wants peace, but someone claims the boy is the aggressor. She barely knows him, but never thought he was actually evil. He was the one who protected her that first night. Still, Caroline isn't convinced his motives were that selfless. He might have just been chasing a thrill. Richard politely asks everyone to clear out of the cabin. Joanna and Bertram are top-tier members, but too many voices will just mess up this conversation right now. He wants this strictly between himself, Caroline, and Adam. The young man agrees, but he's keeping his friends in the loop. Finally, they're alone. Even among friends, Richard can't afford to lose his #1 healer to some reckless mistake. Adam insists on going alone, but Caroline immediately shuts that down. There is no way she's letting him do that. It's both of them, or nobody. Richard hates the idea of walking into a trap. Adam's a leader, but he's no killer. He's just not built to handle someone who can wipe out entire squads by himself. They'll meet near the camp. That way, if things go sideways, they have a way out. Richard calls him a total fool for risking his life like this, but he knows his friend's value. He grants him one chance and some trust. Let's pause for a second. Richard is already starting to lose it, isn't he? He's even suspecting Adam now. Caroline steps in to de-escalate, telling Adam to go outside and talk to the rest of the crew. Honestly, the young man needs a moment too. You can tell he's visibly shaken by all this. He agrees and leaves the cabin. His friends are desperate for news, and though the talk was a disaster, he's still determined to meet Jake. Bertram is terrified for him. Going into that forest alone is basically a suicide mission in his eyes. They've been friends for years, and he can just feel that something about this entire situation is wrong. They all saw what that boy could do on night 1. He's already slaughtered dozens of Richard's best men, but if they trust him, they have to trust his judgment. Caroline comes out and says the meeting is on for tomorrow. Adam is stunned. He has no clue how she actually convinced Richard. Being the best healer has perks. She gave him an ultimatum: either they go, or she's leaving the camp for good. She and Jake had their issues, but she doesn't believe he's some kind of heartless monster deep down. If this matters to Adam, it matters to her too. He's flooded with relief as they share a warm hug. She promises to stay by his side until the end. Meanwhile, Richard is absolutely fuming with jealousy. Deep down, he's obsessed with that blonde. But which blonde? Following the trail, Jake spots a massive rock right where it should be. Past the stream and the old stump, Jake is pretty sure he's finally made it to the right spot. Cecil wonders why they chose this place, probably to stay close to the camp without wandering too deep into the woods. They're definitely worried about an ambush and want a clear path to run if they have to. Cecil jokes that being the pessimist is his literal job. His friend really needs to stay more positive. And that's where we leave it, trust me. You and I are going to want to see this meeting. Alright, you and I are about to see if Seal's friends picked the wrong side, because this guy is a total lunatic and dangerous. Jake insists he stay inside the enchanted necklace. It is not safe out here, and he cannot guarantee his safety. He agrees, but worries Jake will die and leave him trapped forever. Touching his hand, he promises to do his best before vanishing back into the jewelry. As they trek through the forest, Adam warns the young man not to even touch his sword hilt. They are not looking for a fight. He apologizes, admitting everyone is a bit on edge. Adam will take the lead and keep things peaceful. No weapons, no magic. This is just a simple talk between teammates. Jake is already at the meeting point. It is time for the conversation to start. They approach the mysterious boy. Jake pulls back his hood and greets them with a wide smile. Adam apologizes for the wait, noticing Jake looks different. Jake explains he has been training hard lately. Even with his new strength, Adam still sees his friend as a nervous wreck. They start chatting casually, but the tension in the air is thick. Jake asks how the others are doing. Adam says everything at the camp is perfectly fine. Caroline feels things are getting strange, and since he was summoned, he needs the truth. Jake says people are making up lies about him in the forest. Cutting through the talk, Caroline demands to know how many people he has killed. Adam hates the question, but she demands an answer. Jake admits to many, but not enough for war. Bertram is wary and tells him not to lie. Jake insists everything he did was strictly self-defense. He does not sound like the violent, deceitful person William described at all. Watch closely now, because the group finally realizes William is a massive liar. Jake just wants to know what that clown said about him. They know the two clashed. Jake explains that Clown tried to ambush him on his way here. He warns Adam not to believe him because that guy is completely out of his mind. Adam suspected he killed Casper. Hearing this, Jake gets emotional. That is what they all believe. They are shocked Jake did not know. Every night, he checks the survivor counts, praying his friends are alive. But seeing Joanna was still alive at the camp gave him a massive sense of relief. He felt if she could make it, then they all must have survived too. Tears well up as he realizes Casper is gone. Despite the pain, he insists he is okay. Caroline suddenly thinks this was a mistake. They should not be here. Adam asks, what is wrong? She says he should have stayed home, but it is too late. Jake senses someone else nearby. A rustling comes from the bushes. Immediately, he reaches for his quiver to grab an arrow. Bow drawn, he warns them to stop hiding. Adam tries to stop him, but Richard has already stepped out. He admits the young man's senses are incredibly sharp. Sword over his shoulder, he says he is glad to see him. Jake thinks he was set up, but Adam denies it. Richard confirms it. The young man knew absolutely nothing. Now, tell me you saw this coming. Richard didn't trust Adam with the plan, and now Adam realizes his own teammate is a backstabbing traitor. Caroline tries to apologize, but Jake is devastated by the betrayal. If he had heard the stories, he would have doubted too. Everyone calls Jake a monster. He heard the rumors, yet he still chose to trust his friend. But this mediocre woman trusted strangers instead. Richard tells him to come along so they can settle this. If he is truly innocent, they can just put this whole mess behind them. He might even forget Jake killed his archer during their first meeting. But Jake's instincts say this man is pure evil. He is certain the man is lying. He orders him to tell the others to leave so they can talk. Adam did not know others were there. Hayden appears with his men, praising the hunter's skills. They are both in on this project. The meeting was a trap, and Adam feels used. They are surrounded. Jake is furious that he let himself get cornered like this. Richard gives one last chance to surrender. Jake has no idea what to do with no escape route. Hayden launches a lethal fireball. Stick with me to see if our archer survives this insane explosion. Alright, you and I are about to see a betrayal turn into a massacre. A huge explosion erupts, but Jake manages to dodge it and fire back. His arrow whistles through the air toward the target, but the mage is quick enough to pull up a magic shield. Richard tells his warriors to hold back for now. Meanwhile, the old man orders the mages to surround their prey immediately. Slamming their hands down, they prep a massive spell. Jake can feel the ground literally being ripped apart beneath his feet. This is looking bad. Hayden mocks him, saying there is no escape this time, before launching another heavy attack. Boom! A massive explosion rocks the field, but Jake vanishes. Like he just teleported, he reappears on a jagged tree stump. Adam begs Richard to call off the assault, but the guy is too stubborn to listen. He thinks violence is the only way. Adam tries to plead with the woman he doesn't trust, desperate to save his friend before they kill him. But Caroline just shakes her head. There is nothing she can do anymore. The archers are already knocking a new volley of arrows. Those mages, they aren't slowing down their barrage for a single second. They want to drain his stamina and wear him down. The goal is simple, use everything they've got to finish him off. Richard cheers his men on to keep the pressure high. Inside the necklace, Cecile is starting to panic. Jake needs to get out of there right now. But Jake's options are running out. Too many attacks to dodge at once. and one of those mages is actively blocking his shadow walking ability. The circle is tightening around him. He is trapped, and can't even use teleportation to escape the area. Now, look closely, this is where things hit rock bottom. Jake notices one of his feet is already pinned down by their magic. Richard screams for the archers to fire. A rain of arrows fills the sky. Jake can't dodge them all, and one finds its mark. Another arrow rips straight through his leg. Our main character is wounded, bleeding, and now he can't move at all. He screams in pure rage for them to let him go. Richard steps up to end it, while Adam tries one last desperate plea to spare his friend's life. Cecile is helpless and terrified watching this unfold. Richard stands over him, cold as ice, and says it's finally all over. Jake struggles against his bindings, but he's got nothing left. That sword is about to get very personal with the back of his neck. For a second, Jake almost accepts it. His fate seems sealed. There is absolutely nothing left for him to do. After all those epic battles and the monsters he's slain, he still couldn't see this betrayal coming. It's a bitter way to go. His only hope now is that someone finds the necklace and lets his friend out. He's ready to die. I know what you're thinking. Is this really the end? Not even close. The system just announced he achieved the Primitive Hunter Bloodline. He stares at the message in total confusion. Without even realizing it, he just unlocked a whole new level of human evolution. He can feel his entire body shifting. It's weird, intense, and his heart is pounding faster and faster against his ribs. Pure instinct takes the wheel. The world slows down until every second feels like an eternity. Suddenly, he can feel every drop of mana in the air. It's like a massive pool of energy filling up deep in his gut. There's only one thing left for him to do now. He lets that power explode. A massive shockwave forms, blasting every single person away from him in an instant. Richard gets tossed like a rag doll. Jake screams as power radiates from him in waves. The fools can only stand there and watch in pure terror. Hayden wonders if this is some kind of forbidden magic. Jake snaps his bindings like they're nothing, and finally stands back up on his feet. Adam is speechless. He just watched his friend transform, but he's not even sure if this thing is human anymore. Caroline, who really shouldn't be talking right now, starts to believe those rumors. Jake looks different. Dangerous. He's truly become a monster. Richard tries to act tough, yelling that one man can't possibly take on their whole army at once. He orders his men to charge. This small army of fodder is basically sprinting toward their own certain doom. Jake slowly draws his daggers and takes a deep breath. He moves. Fast. So fast he's basically a blur to the human eye. The first grunt just bought a one-way ticket to the afterlife. The second guy gets the exact same treatment. Total slaughter. Number 3 doesn't even realize his chest has been sliced wide open until it's way too late to scream. It happens so fast they're only just realizing they're dead. Seeing he's next on the list, the commander panics and orders his men to form a defensive line immediately. Fodder soldiers with swords and shields desperately scramble to obey the command. But Jake just vaults right over them. Easy. He pulls out vials of deadly poison and drops one on every single soldier. The toxins hit them hard. As they start to suffer, our primitive hunter just stands there and strikes a cold hero pose. That poison is no joke. These men are literally melting like plastic soldiers left out in the sun. Adam is horrified by the disgusting scene. Not a single person there can stop him. They're all throwing their lives away for absolutely nothing at this point. Hayden, who is either brave or just plain stupid, thinks he can still win. He was saving a secret spell for an emergency. He sprouts wings like a diseased pigeon. We're about to see if this actually saves him from Jake. Alright, you and I are diving into a lethal chase as he swears Jake won't escape. This mage is fast, forcing the hunter into some desperate maneuvers. Those wings are straight up dangerous. If he hadn't dodged, he'd be in serious trouble, potentially losing a few limbs right there. The old man yells that running is useless. He needs to give up as soon as possible. Here's the part where you and I need to watch closely. His speed isn't enough, and reinforcements are closing in fast. His only real shot is using Shadow Walk. He's praying the ability actually works this time, especially after Cecile warned him about a mysterious barrier blocking the area. Finally, the hunter realizes he's been contained. He has no idea who's behind this, but someone just whispered an apology. Caroline is such a mediocre traitor. She's in way too deep. You and I must see what happens next.